version sick. It's degenerate and sick.
Is it time?
It is time for us to do what we have been doing, and that time is every day.
We'll know in a very short period of time, but it looks like it could be something that will be not good. Believe me, not good.
I see issue with that. And again, hey.
You're not going to be able to insult your way to the presidency. That's not going to happen.
I don't know who created Pokemon Go, but I'm trying to figure out how we get them to have Pokemon go to the polls.
I'm Ted Cruz, and my pronoun is kiss my ass.
So when you think about it, there is great significance to the passage of time in terms of what we need to do to lay these wires, what we need to do to create these jobs.
America is a nation that can be defined in a single word. I was going to put him
not good. Believe me, not good.
Hello, dissidents. Welcome, one and all, to a special Thursday midday edition of the Do Dissidents podcast. Keaton Weiss here with Archie Bunker, of course. Co-host Bunker today.
No, this is when I went to the Smithsonian in September.
Where's your microphone at? Where's the microphone at?
Oh, sorry about that.
Yeah.
No, when I went to the Smithsonian in September, they were selling replica Archie Bunker chairs.
Yeah.
And I ordered it. I brought it up here with me to Buffalo on the train. I love it so much.
Yeah, there you go. Looks
I've
good.
I've got a cup of chicken noodle soup here.
Yes, cup of chicken soup. You have your teeth in, and you're ready to go. Got your teeth out of the water, fresh out of the water.
That's
we are ready to roll.
Very minty. I
Yes.
use a special minty liquid for my dentures. Yeah, with a little THC, so I'm a little purple haze. They call it purple haze.
Well, we got 556 strong in the YouTube chat to start things off. 276 strong in the Rumble chat. Thanks everybody for being here today. So much to get to today. Really a lot to get to. We're going to jump right in with breaking news. This broke right before we went on the air. Mike Waltz. Mike Waltz is the first to go. That's right. It was sort of a musical chairs, the Trump term one of cabinet members coming and going. And Mike Waltz is the first one out. So if you bet on Mike Waltz as being the first cabinet member to get the axe, then you are the big winner today. And he was fired, apparently. He did not step down voluntarily. So Fox News has the breaking here.
Breaking news that happened in the commercial break. So what you're looking at photographs right now of Michael Waltz. He is the president's national security advisor, except for we just got news that he is going to be leaving the administration along with his deputy, Alex Wong. Of course, if you might remember the story of Signalgate. I don't know if that's for a particular reason, but there was some consternation among some people about Mike Waltz, who you might remember was a congressman. Green Beret, a long history and career in foreign policy, and I believe
gave up his seat in Congress to serve for 3 months in the Trump administration. Yes, now they got Randy Fine down there in his seat, right? That's the guy who took over for him. So there you go. There you go. Mike Waltz, other National Security Council staffers out in latest Trump purge following, Signal chat leak. Trump administration National Security Advisor Mike Waltz and other staffers are out at the National Security Council, sources confirmed to Fox News. Fox News confirmed Waltz and his deputy Alex Wong were fired Thursday. Sources said additional staffers removed from the office will likely be announced, and President Donald Trump is expected to speak publicly about the matter. We will likely not have that for this stream since this is breaking right before we went on the air. Trump held a meeting with members of his cabinet Wednesday following his 100th day back in office Tuesday, with Waltz attending the meeting. Following confirmation of Waltz's ouster, House Minority Leader Hakeem Jeffries told Fox News, "The National Security Advisor Waltz is out. He's the first. He certainly won't be the last." Wong served as Waltz's principal deputy national security advisor, who was detailed in the Signal chat leak as the staffer charged with pulling together a Tiger team in Waltz's initial message sent to the Signal group chat in March, The Atlantic magazine reported at the time. Let's remember, he took responsibility for that, so we could have a Fall Guy situation on our hands. Here is a tweet at the time of him on the Laura Ingraham show, saying essentially he will take the flak for this.
He wasn't on my phone, and we're going to figure out how this happened.
So you don't know what staffer is responsible for this right now?
Well, look, a staffer wasn't responsible, and look, I take full responsibility. I built the group. My job is to make sure everything's coordinated.
But how did the number? I mean, I don't mean to be pedantic here, but how did the number?
Have you ever had somebody's contact that shows their name, and then you have somebody else's number there?
I never make those mistakes.
Right? You got somebody else's number on someone else's contact. So of course I didn't see this loser in the group. It looked like someone else. Now whether he did it deliberately or it happened in some other technical mean is something we're trying to figure out.
So there's a possibility that this could be about that, could be about him taking the fall for that instead of Hegseth. But interestingly, Michael Tracy, who is on this, he is on this whenever something like this happens. He tweeted this out really right before we went on. So close that I didn't even have time to make an exhibit, so we're going to screen share this. But Michael Tracy says, Mike Waltz was on Fox and Friends just a few hours ago before being fired. So this wasn't like, oh, he knew this was happening last night. He started the day assuming he had the job, it looks like. In the appearance, Waltz echoes Hegseth's threat to Iran posted last night and seems to suggest that Iran has walked away from the negotiating table. Curious, ... Let's take a listen.
All right, let's talk about what is going on with the Houthi rebels. We've been bombing them pretty consistently since the middle of March. You had 1,000 U.S. strikes on different targets. When are they going to start getting the message? And is the message really to Iran?
Well, you heard Secretary Hegseth that Iran needs to wake up. Iran needs to get the message that it can be a responsible country, that the president of the United States wants peace. He's ready to make a deal. and that it cannot have a nuclear weapon. Not only can it not have a nuclear weapon, it cannot provide funding, resources, missiles, and assistance to a terrorist organization that is attacking international shipping, attacking United States assets, shooting at our planes. Enough is enough. And the president's been loud and clear. Secretary Hegseth is putting his message out loud and clear. So we sincerely hope Iran receives that message. And again, our great ambassador Witkoff is waiting for them to come back to the table.
All right. Well, apparently Hegseth had some tough words for Iran last night. Like I said, this all just fell in our lap right before we went on. So forgive whatever incompleteness exists in this makeshift segment here to start the day. But from that, it looks like maybe talks with Iran are about to take a turn for the worse. Maybe the administration is concerned that a hawk like Waltz might advocate for a more bellicose response than the administration wants to engage in. That could be why. It could be regarding the Signalgate leaks. We just don't know at this point, but it is kind of curious that he started the day assuming he had the job when it looks like, talks with Iran may have taken a turn.
Yeah, in the ABC interview that Trump just did, he actually talks about having met with Hegseth, and he's not clear. The interviewer asks him if he took him to the woodshed. He doesn't frame. He's a very smart guy. He's a very talented guy, I think, and he's doing a great job. So, yeah, I mean, Trump seems to like Hegseth quite a lot. You never got the sense that he had quite as much of a personal stake in Waltz.
Right.
When all of Whiskey Leaks blew up again last week with the fired staffers, a lot of people attributed it to inside fighting between Waltz and Hegseth over Iran. We did a segment on that. I think that's BS, particularly given that other than, I forget his name right now, the one who did the Tucker interview. He's the only one who openly advocates for a less bellicose position on Iran. The other fired staffers, he himself says he has no idea what their politics are. So presumably anyone who would have forced them out, which Hegseth, at the end of the day, the buck stops there, right? He fired them. But according to the rumors, according to reading the tea leaves, Waltz was kind of the odd men out. According to the reporting, Hegseth, Gabbard, they are very skeptical of getting into a military engagement in Iran. And Waltz was skeptical of an action that Netanyahu wanted them to take. But it seems like that was because he didn't agree with the strategic makeup of the operation. But overall, he's the most hawkish on Iran, which, again, according to the reporting behind the scenes, he was kind of the odd man out on that.
Yeah, exactly. And if push is coming to shove with Iran and it's shit or get off the pot time, that may explain why he just ran out of road. At a certain point, you're either going to go along, or if you're a problem, you're going to have to go. And obviously Trump has much more personal loyalty to Hegseth than Waltz. Waltz is, yes, he was the odd man out. He's not in the crew, as they say. Much,
he's not in the club.
He's not in the club. He doesn't have the online following that Hegseth and Tulsi and RFK and all the, Kash Patel. I mean, Trump obviously pays attention to this stuff, and those cabinet members have throngs of online supporters who will raise hell if he fires them. So if it comes down to Hegseth or Waltz, Waltz is going to be the one to go. That could be for personal reasons. That could be for political reasons. It could be a mixture of both. We'll have to see what happens. I believe Saturday is when the Iran talks are set to continue. So we'll probably have a follow-up on this on Sunday when more information will be available.
And they may have also felt somebody's head had to roll over Signalgate.
Well, yeah, they couldn't just let that go, right, without somebody getting fired, right. And so there you have it. But wow, what a brief career. Imagine giving up your... I mean, he's a fairly young guy. Imagine giving up your seat in Congress to go be national security advisor, and you don't even last 3 months. Barely last 3 months. First day of May, you're gone. Wow. That's a shame.
Well, that's not exactly a position that comes with job security in that administration. He might have thought about that.
Yeah, exactly. Yes, Trump goes through cabinet members pretty quickly. Trump goes through cabinet members the way J.B. Pritzker goes through cabinets. Haha. What do you think of that one? That was a good joke. I figured, an old guy like you might like that joke.
That's a good joke.
For Pa. Yeah.
That's a good joke.
That's a good joke. Exactly. Hey, folks, it's Thursday, May 1st, which means we are less than a week away from the launch of the Misty Winston Show, which we are thrilled and excited to be producing. That will debut May 7th. That's Wednesday night at 7 p.m. Eastern. That will stream exclusively to Rumble and X. Misty Winston will be hosting a weekly show for us. We will be dropping clips on YouTube, but we want the stream to be uncensored and unfiltered. We spend about 10% of our time here censoring ourselves.
As you know, Misty has no fucks to give.
Exactly.
Which means we can't stream her live on YouTube. God knows what she's going to say.
Well, it's not even that. It's more that we spend 10% of the time here censoring ourselves, figuring out how not to be censored, and we have
why
neither
censor Misty Winston.
Exactly. We have neither the time nor the desire to manage someone else in that way. I don't want to micromanage what she says. I don't want to say, oh, you can't do that segment. Oh, you could do it, but you got to do it this way. You can't show this video. You got to show this, but not that part, and mute this volume. And no, we're not going to do that. We're going to stream it live, uncensored on Rumble. We will be dropping clips to YouTube. So if you're subscribed to the YouTube channel, but not the Rumble channel, you'll get clips, but you won't be able to watch live unless you watch it on Rumble or Twitter. If Rumble is unavailable in your area, we'll be streaming it to her X feed, it looks like. And so make sure you follow Misty Winston at Sarcasm Stardust on Twitter and subscribe to our Rumble channel, because starting next week, that is going to be a regular show once a week. We are super excited about that. We just had a friend of ours, I don't know if he wants his name out there or not, I forget, so I won't say it yet, but just made us some great animation graphics for the opening theme. We got Nick and Voldstead, who did our theme, working on a theme musically for this, so we're really excited about it. And of course, thanks to the Zago brothers for letting us use their brilliant stencil artwork here. So we're super excited about that. That's going to be Wednesday, 7 p.m. May 7th. That is the debut episode. So we're super stoked about that. So make sure you follow Misty on Twitter and follow us, Do Dissidents, on Rumble. That is super important. We're super excited for that. Hillary Hinton says, how I know that everything is fucking bullshit? Joy Division, New Order still aren't in the stupid, irrelevant Rock and Roll Hall of Fame, which makes it stupider and irrelevant. I don't know. They're borderline, to be honest. I mean, they're a good band, no doubt. Good band. Hall of Fame, borderline. Then again, the Rock and Roll Hall of Fame doesn't really have that high standards, so I guess they should probably be in.
That's true.
But yeah, I was never a huge fan. I mean, I like them. I think they're good. They have their own sound. They're unique. Hey, I thought about maybe doing a music review channel, Because the thing is, because the thing is, it's kind of fun. I love music, and whenever we talk music, people in the chat seem to respond to my music takes. I can't do a movie channel because I don't have time to go see movies. I don't, I don't have spare. I don't have 3 hours to take out of a day to go to a theater and watch a movie. Plus, it's expensive. You have a streaming service. You can listen to any music you want for $10 a month. You could do it. So maybe, hey, if I do that, will you guys in the chat? Will you subscribe?
I've been thinking about asking Norm if he wants to partner on a golden age of porn channel.
Yeah, right. Yeah. Do that on BitChute exclusively. Yeah. Yes. We're going to be
maybe
live on
Odyssey.
Yeah, BitChute and Odyssey with Norm Finkel's at Rockfin. I think Rockfin took us off. I think they threw us off. I don't know why.
Did they?
Yeah, we stopped posting there.
We didn't funnel enough of our Bitcoin to Bukele.
Yeah, yeah, right, exactly. I don't know what the deal is. Apparently, we got thrown off somehow. Eric Rousseau says, thoughts on the all real women astronaut spacewalk today, juxtaposed with Bezos space girls taking up space. Was there an all woman astronaut launch today?
I didn't even know that.
So
they were actual astronauts.
Yeah.
I got to say, man, we cover the news, so the news cycles out of our brains as quickly as we cover the story. I must say, Gayle King having the fucking narcissistic insanity to say no one said Alan Shepard took a ride and we went the same route as Alan Shepard Like, how far up your own ass do you have to be to make a comparison to a guy who flew an experimental rocket on that route for the first time? The key phrase being flew. He fucking flew the goddamn thing. Like, how do you even say something like that? It's just incredible.
Yeah, but I didn't know. I mean, yesterday was such a huge news day that, like, it was really hard just to keep up with what we were going to be doing today. I mean, there are like 20 stories we could have done. We could have done, you know, the Whitmer rally. I mean, there's a whole bunch of things we could have done yesterday.
And this is going to be one of the nice things about having the Misty Winston show.
Right.
There will be stories that we can not do, and she can do them, and vice versa.
Exactly. Brent Yoendo, thanks for the $5. Sounds funny when I think about it, but Keaton, being a Cumtown listener, certifies my trust in you guys and humanity. Yeah, those guys are fun. Those guys are really funny. We started this podcast out, basically, this project got started as a blog, so I didn't even like listen to much until I started driving all day, every day for a living. Then I started listening to podcasts more. Because when I drove with passengers, I wasn't going to listen to podcasts, especially not really vulgar podcasts like that with passengers in the car. But when I was driving delivery all day, I got to find like new podcasts. That's when I discovered them. I discovered them kind of late because they started in 2016. I didn't discover them until like 2021. But yes, those guys are awesome. Skyman 2204, I've tried. They're just unreasonable. And with the way the economy is, thanks to Biden, we have no choice but war. It's ugly, very ugly, but we need to be strong. Trump from the near future. Thank you very much. Good one. Appreciate that. Okay, let's move right on along here. Okay, folks, here's some good news. If it weren't for Mike Waltz getting fired, this would have started the show on a good foot because, of course, Columbia student who was arrested at citizenship interview is freed. That's right. Mohsen Mahdawi had been an organizer of pro-Palestinian protests at the university. The Trump administration is trying to deport him for it. Mohsen Mahdawi, an organizer of the pro-Palestinian movement at Columbia University, was freed from federal custody on Wednesday, more than 2 weeks after immigration officials detained him and sought to rescind his green card as part of a widening crackdown against student protesters. In releasing Mr. Mahdawi on bail, Judge Jeffrey W. Crawford of Federal District Court in Vermont drew parallels between the current political climate and McCarthyism. I watched Jimmy and Kurt talk about this. Kurt had a good line. He says, "This is not McCarthyism, this is Milikowskiism." I like that one. That was good. Well done. Milikowskiism. I wanted to steal that. I thought I should steal that, but give credit. This is not the first time that the nation has seen chilling action by the government intended to shut down debate, Judge Crawford said. The release of Mr. Mahdawi, a permanent legal resident, is a defeat for the Trump administration, though it does not mean the end of the federal government's action against him. His immigration case will continue, but he will be able to fight it from outside a detention facility. Once again, my friend, I say this with all love and all respect and with full acknowledgement of your right to handle this however you want. If I were you, I'd find a nice place to settle down far away from here and head on out. That's what I would do. You have the right to be here, in my opinion. You do whatever you want, but for your sake, I would say go to a place that's more welcoming because this place sucks. That's me. That's your call, obviously. And here he is.
Costa Rica is lovely, and it's not
exactly.
A long
I mean, just go to a nice place with nice people. Like, what do we have here? Do you need to be here for? Go someplace nice. You know. I mean, I say that with, like I said, I mean the best for you. You have the right to be here if you want, but
I don't think they have unlimited salad bars other places. There is that.
We don't even have that too many places here. Most
Not
of the
anymore.
Ponderosas are out of business.
That's true. Yeah.
And Wendy's got rid of their salad bar 20 years ago. Anyway, here he is coming out of the courthouse here. So a beautiful show of support outside the courthouse, and he made some brief remarks, gave some brief remarks to the crowd as well. To President Trump and his cabinet, I am not afraid of you.
Anyone because our fight, we will not fear anyone because our fight is a fight for love, is a fight for democracy, is a fight for humanity.
Amen.
And I am saying it clear and loud.
Yes.
To President Trump and his cabinet.
Yes.
I am not afraid of you.
Peace.
Good for him. Good for him. And good for everybody there. Tricia McLaughlin, a spokeswoman for the Department of Homeland Security, denounced Judge Crawford's decision in a post on social media. When you advocate for violence, glorify and support terrorists that relish the killings of Americans and harass Jews, that privilege should be revoked and you should not be in this country, Ms. McLaughlin said, without offering any evidence to support her accusations. Not only is there no evidence to support her accusations, in his case, there's plenty of evidence to the contrary. He is amongst the most moderate and conciliatory of those involved in this movement. We talked about when we showed the 60 Minutes interview in the segment we did when he was detained, about how he has a lot of empathy for people on both sides of the conflict. I mean, he is one of the very few who go out of their way on a consistent basis to emphasize empathy for Israeli civilians, hostages, children on both sides of the conflict. And here he is. He was paid a visit while he was in jail by Vermont Senator Peter Welch. We have an excerpt of this to show you.
Also, Secretary Rubio said you're a threat to foreign policy. Can you just tell us what you were hoping for and how you've worked with some of your Jewish brothers and sisters as well as Muslim brothers and sisters?
My activism, so they are basically, he is describing being anti-war as anti-Semitic. How could that be possible when most of my partners at Columbia's campus and beyond are Jews and Israelis? My work has been centered on peacemaking. And all what I am doing, I am being a human. My empathy, as I mentioned before, extends beyond the Palestinian people. And my empathy extends to the Jews and to the Israelis. And my hope and my dream is to see this conflict, if one might say, to see an end to the war and end to the killing, to see a peaceful resolution between Palestinians and Israelis. How could this be a threat to anybody? Except the war machine that is feeding this.
It would be good for everybody, for us to have peace.
Yeah. So, look, that line is the line they use against all protesters, and it's especially untrue in his case. In granting the release of Mr. Mahdawi, Judge Crawford cited his extensive ties to the community and said he did not pose a danger to the public. Obviously, he noted the court had received more than 90 submissions from community members, academic experts, and professors who know Mr. Mahdawi, many of them Jewish, attesting to his character and consistently describing him as peaceful. The judge also spoke of the extraordinary circumstances of Mr. Mahdawi's detention and the present moment in history. Judge Crawford's Burlington courtroom was packed on Wednesday with supporters of Mr. Mahdawi, who remained hushed as the judge issued his order. A few began clapping as Mr. Mahdawi was allowed to collect his belongings and leave immediately. So a great story, not only that he is out of detention, but what's also encouraging about this is that, as black-pilled as many of us have become over the past year and change, what you see here is an example of public sentiment seeming to have influenced the judge. In that article, it mentions how the judge was inundated with letters and expressions of support for this guy, saying he's, of course, not a threat to anybody. He's perfectly peaceful. And they obviously showed up to support him in the courtroom. And I have to think that made a difference. And so that should be encouraging to people as well. You know, the project of justice for Palestine is going to be a long one, but it is a battle we will win. There will be justice for this. The Israeli state is not going to be able to function as it does for much longer. They're already experiencing a major brain drain, a major resource drain, and that will continue as long as
ports
public
closing, bankruptcies.
Exactly. Yeah, exactly, and that will continue as long as public sentiment, both here and around the world, continues to turn against them. And so I do think while it can look and feel and sound very hopeless at times, it is important to know that victories like this are possible and they matter. They add up. They add up. You send a letter to a judge on behalf of this guy, that's a win. Whether he chooses to stay or leave is his call. I made my recommendation, but good to see him free. Good to see pressure applied. Good to see pressure work. Good to see a judge actually stand up and do the right thing. So a good story overall for now, at least.
When you look at how senseless who they're rounding up is, it's very clear that they just got lists from Zionist organizations, from Miriam Adelson, from Bazaar, that's their name?
Betar.
Yep. They just got lists. One day it's going to come out. One day the books will be written, and you're going to find out that they were literally given lists by these organizations because there's no rhyme and reason to it.
Right.
Like if you want to seem like you're just rounding up people who are siding with terrorists, why would you grab somebody who is such an implausible figure to put that label on? And I do think you're right about this and about a lot of other things. Look, this administration has turned public opinion against itself in an incredibly fast time. Within the first 100 days, they've collapsed even on support for their immigration policies.
Yep.
The most hopeful thing I see out there is that, judges are ruling against them and the public is turning against them very fast. We should thank our lucky stars that this is an administration of crackpots, weirdos, incompetents, and losers, or we'd be in real trouble. They're doing such a bad job of fascism that it's making people say, hang on a second. I don't want this. That's the most hopeful thing going on in the country right now.
100%. And, it is good to see that the judiciary seems to be stepping up, including, not necessarily in this case yet, but including Amy Coney Barrett, who's one of those conservative judges. If she decided she was just going to be a rubber stamp, man, that would do a lot of damage. That would do a lot of damage. But so far, there seem to be people along the way who are doing what they can, and the public seems to be waking up to things. Unfortunately, it takes an economic crisis to wake people up. I wish that weren't the case. Part of why we do this show is so that's not the case. You have to build education. You have to build consciousness. You have to build awareness around these issues and build, hopefully, a certain revolutionary energy. But in the short term, when the economy goes south is when people's eyes start to open up. And that's happening now. These tariffs were a major turning point.
Next week to 2 weeks, they say the shelves are going to start to empty. And it's too late to do anything about it. You could stop the tariffs today. Those ships already left China empty. Too late.
Correct. Luigi, Vaccine Pew Pew, says it's sad talking to normies. The lefty deranged people now have their crazy beliefs solidified, and the MAGA cult won't hold Trump accountable for all the previous derangement. I ran out of characters there. But I think you're going to see things take a turn. You already are. I mean, the approval rating really imploded quickly. Mike Waltz also got prank called on NFL draft day by Hamas. He thought he was going to the Patriots. Haha, good one, Eric Husso. Appreciate that. Jeff Goldberg's soft, moist lips just sucked me in. Thank you, Gina and Heidi. Appreciate that very much. Skyman2204 over on YouTube says all of the Iran talks are just a veil of plausible deniability for when the inevitable kicks off. Thank you, Skyman. Appreciate that. Nice crowd over on YouTube. 1,500 strong. 501 over on Rumble. Smash that like button. We're at 403 likes. Let's get to 666 by the end of this next segment, shall we? Please and thank you. All right, we're going to move on to Trump versus ABC News.
Trump versus Terry Moran. This mostly got a lot of coverage because of Trump's insane assertion about the MS-13 Photoshop. But there was quite a lot of other moments there worth taking a look at. So let's go into that.
Happened. Energy is down.
Okay, so he was asked about the economy, the tariffs, inflation.
Look at what's happened. Energy is down. Gasoline hit $1.98 in a few states during the last couple of days. It was $3.50 and $4 and $4.50. But gasoline is way down. When I took over, you remember the big thing with eggs. They hit me the first week. Eggs, like it was my fault. I said, I didn't cause this problem. This problem was caused by Biden. What's the problem with eggs? And they said, they've doubled. And well, eggs are down 87% since I got involved.
A lot of that is
and
bird
by the way,
flu,
and there
right?
were plenty of eggs for Easter, which we just went through. There were plenty of eggs for Easter. They were saying you won't have enough eggs for Easter. My secretary did a fantastic job on eggs. Groceries
You had
are
a very
down.
successful Easter.
Everything's down.
Okay.
Interest rates are the same. Interest rates should be down, but we have a Federal Reserve that wants to be stubborn. They want to be cute.
We'll get to. Well,
The Easter Bunny, he came to me personally. He sent me a note. He thanked me. He was very happy with the price of eggs. Yeah, the bird flu passed. He didn't do anything. There's nothing he did. There's nothing he really could have done. The egg prices are bad. What? It's yeah. In terms of inflation, all right. So inflation has been trending down since COVID. Obviously, you're going to get some ups and downs. It's on the lower end right now, but not outside the historical range. Like in September, it hit about the same that it is right now. Certainly nothing, you can't really say anything that Trump has done one way or the other has really impacted inflation. You'll start to see those numbers impacted by his decisions very shortly, I suspect, as the docks empty out and so do the shelves. In terms of the economy overall, there are some very troubling signs. McDonald's U.S. sales dropped by most since height of pandemic. Economic pressures and consumer uncertainty over tariffs reduced traffic at burger chains restaurants. Now, it's things like this that tell you what's going on in the real economy, in the main street that supposedly they care about so much. This is the kind of retailer that suffers when people don't have money, when they don't have money to buy this kind of cheap consumer item, although not as cheap as it used to be. This we covered the other day. Empty port in Seattle. We're seeing that in Miami. Port of Los Angeles says traffic based on incoming cargo ships is going to be down 35% by next week. Not by next month, not by next year, by next week. And this just dropped today. This just dropped this morning. Weekly jobless claims surged to 241,000, more than expected in latest sign of economic trouble. Now, I talked to Kate a little bit about this morning. I wasn't able to get to the story, but you want to see the disconnect between Wall Street and Main Street. All this news dropped today, the McDonald's and the unemployment numbers. Wall Street's up. You know why Wall Street's up? Because Meta and Microsoft beat on the quarter. They reported good numbers on their earnings. And now, if that doesn't tell you that the investor class doesn't sweat what's happening in the real economy, they only care about what's happening in the investor class. What would you need to tell you that? Obviously, the same exact day that you're getting all this data saying the average person is in a recession, the economy's in a recession, the average person, the working person is already financially strapped, Wall Street goes off the hook because the investor class is making money. And Trump and his cabinet are nothing if not members of that class. Anything, Keaton?
Yeah, well, before we move on from the eggs, I just wanted to say, not only so the reason why the eggs have come down a bit is because, yes, the bird flu numbers have gone down, so they're killing off fewer birds, which is leading to increased supply. On top of that, there's been a plummet in demand because they were so expensive for so long. I haven't even considered buying eggs in months. We just had Easter. I have 3 kids. We didn't paint eggs this year. We painted cookies. I'm not buying $6 eggs. That's it. We did cookies. I wouldn't dream of buying your bullshit eggs.
I told you in New York they were over $11 for organic eggs.
Right, exactly. So because of the price
for the
increases,
normal ones, it was like $7, $8.
Yeah, like $7, $8. Just insane. So there were a lot of people, including myself, who decided we're not even interested in buying them. So in that period of time where the bird flu numbers go down and supply goes up, combined with the fact that demand is down, that gives the suppliers an extra time to build supply levels up, which is going to create a supply-demand imbalance tilted in supply favor, which is, of course, going to bring the prices down. It is not of Donald Trump's doing that eggs came down. And by the way, they're still expensive compared to what they should be.
Excuse me. I got on the phone with the CEO of Cadbury's. I told him, you better ship those eggs.
Yeah.
Kids are depending on you.
Exactly.
So he went on to talk about his view on what his obligations are to the people being deported. And he kind of gave away the game. Let's hear it.
Well, the law requires that every single person who is going to be deported gets a hearing first.
Well,
you acknowledge that?
I'll have to ask the lawyers about that. All I can say is this. If you're going to have 21 million people, and if we have to get a lot of them out because they're criminals, we're going to have to act fast. We can't. Do you think we can give 21 million trials? Let's say each trial takes 2 weeks. Is that what you want us to do?
The law
give
is the law,
million?
sir. The law is the law, and you're
the law
sworn
doesn't
to
say anything
uphold it.
about trials.
No, not trials, hearings. I said
These
hearings.
people came in, they're not citizens. They came in illegally. They came into our country illegally.
And
we have to get them out.
There's a legal process for that.
I can't, sure, and we follow the legal process. I can't have a trial, a major trial for every person that came in illegally. We have thousands of murderers that came in. They're going to murder people. They already have murdered people in our country.
Right, so
we have to get them out, and we have to get them out fast.
Really bad guys, but in our country, even bad guys get due process, right?
If people come into our country illegally, there's a different standard. These are illegal. They came in illegally.
But they get due process.
Well, they get a process where we have to get them out. Yeah.
Okay, let's talk about the Venezuelans.
They get whatever my lawyers say.
You could get them back.
Oh, okay. So he's literally telling you, well, the legal process is going to take too long, so we're not going to follow a legal process. And then he falls back here and there. No, we're doing it within the law. Well, no, you're not doing it within the law, as we'll see in the next segment, because he is not, and admitting that he's not, facilitating the return of Abrego Garcia. But he's saying straight out, there's a different process. They came in illegally. No, there is not. Under the Constitution, every person within the borders of the United States is entitled to the rights and protections of the Constitution. If that was not the case, anyone who comes in illegally, you could just indefinitely detain, which is essentially what they're trying to do. But even they are acknowledging that they can't do that legally by sending them to El Salvador instead of trying to indefinitely detain them within our borders. He is admitting straight out the legal process, the Constitution, adhering to the Constitution would be too complicated and it would take too long. So we're not going to adhere to the Constitution.
Yeah. 2 wrongs don't make a right. You learn that when you're 5 or 6 years old. So the fact that the borders were busted open, which is what he says, I think the truth is a little bit more nuanced than that. But we have had an increase in illegal border crossings. Even people on the other side of this issue seem to admit that. You know what that means? That means you may have to hire some more people, come up with a government response such that, you know what, we can give everybody a 5-minute hearing. Hearings for these kinds of things do not take long. They don't even take a day. They don't take an hour. You take 5 or 6 minutes. You make your case. Yes, we need that no matter what. First of all, there are not 20 million murderers who cross the border. Okay, so that not the conflation. Right. This is why I'm saying whenever we talk about this, it's important to understand this is all just a justification to build a police state.
Yes.
You know, the distinction they make between criminal alien and alien, even between legal and illegal, ultimately at the end of the day, is meaningless. It's meaningless. Green card holders who criticize Israel, you're out. Oh, guys who are here who are keeping up to date with their meetings, who had an immigration order waived because they're in danger of being attacked by gangs if they're sent back, doesn't matter. You're out. None of these distinctions that they're drawing actually matter to them, which is probably why they don't want to give due process, because those distinctions do matter in a formal hearing where you actually have to make an argument. But due process is the bedrock. If you don't have that, you do not have a free society anymore. So the fact that the border was mismanaged by the previous president does not give you an excuse to just treat people however the hell you want. It can't. It can't. That is a complete breakdown of our society as a free society. You are just a police state at that point. And you know, once again, he's obfuscating what the due process actually constitutes. Doesn't mean you set up trials for everybody. It means you bring them before a judge for a few minutes. The state makes its case. The judge says, yes, send them out, or no, keep them here. That's it. That's all it is. It's pretty simple. It's pretty easy.
Okay, so he goes on.
The phone on this desk.
I could.
You could pick it up, and with all the power the president.
So he's being asked about whether he could bring back Abrego Garcia. And this is very revealing of Trump's psyche. He got his back up at the suggestion that maybe he can't do something. And so he makes a confession that even though he's been denying that he can do it, their whole premise is now Abrego Garcia is in a foreign country. We're powerless, but Trump doesn't like to be told he's powerless. So in a candid moment, I don't think he intended to admit this, but he admits what everybody knows. One phone call, the guy would be back.
Could get him back. There's a phone on this desk.
I could.
You could pick it up, and with all the power of the presidency, you could call up the president of El Salvador and say, send him back right now.
And if he were the gentleman that you say he is, I would do that.
But the court has ordered you to facilitate that.
I'm not the one making this decision. We have lawyers that don't want to do this.
But the buck stops in this office.
No. I follow the law. You want me to follow the law? If I were the president that just wanted to do anything, I'd probably keep him right where he is.
Supreme Court says what the law is.
He's got a piece.
Okay, so he's literally not following the law. This is from the Supreme Court decision. The order properly requires the government to facilitate Abrego Garcia's release from custody in El Salvador and to ensure that his case is handled as it would have been had he not been improperly sent to El Salvador. Now they're hanging everything on the intended scope of the term effectuate in the district court's order is, however, unclear and may exceed the district court's authority. And that is, of course, referencing, well, you can't force them to mount an invasion of El Salvador. But they are very clear that they are under an obligation to facilitate his return. By saying the soft part out loud, straight out, with one phone call, I could get him back, he has just confessed to a crime. He has just confessed that he is criminally refusing to obey a Supreme Court order. He has now admitted that in broad daylight. That is what I think the kids are calling a constitutional crisis. Anything, Keaton, before we go on to the MS-13 thing?
Yeah, no, I mean, between those two clips, you're just seeing the lawlessness of this. I mean, they are pretty much admitting that. But they moved fast enough to the point where now the courts are a few steps behind them. And this is the Curtis Yarvin playbook. You don't have to play by the rules. You just have to be 2 steps ahead of the rules, because people who play by the rules take a little bit longer than people who don't play by the rules, right? If you're going to jump out if you're running a race and you're going to just run out before they say go, well, then you're probably going to win, because the guy who plays by the rules is waiting for the referee to say go, right? And that's their whole game. Their whole game is just outrun the system.
All right, let's take a look at the clip that really went viral. This is Trump's absolutely bizarre contention that the MS-13 Photoshop actually represented a real image. We even gave him the benefit of the doubt on that. When we covered it, we said, well, they're probably not really trying to say that that's actually on his hand. But I guess Trump didn't get the memo.
He wasn't a member of a gang. And then...
Let's set it up. Hang on, did we miss him? There we go.
He said he wasn't a member of a gang. And then they looked, and on his knuckles, he had MS-13.
There's a dispute.
Well, wait a minute. He had MS-13 on his knuckles, too.
Oh, he had some tattoos that are interpreted that way. But let's move on.
Wait a minute. Terry.
He did not have the letter MS-13.
It says MS-13.
Oh, that was Photoshop. So let me
That was Photoshop. Terry, you can't do that. Hey, they're giving you the big break of a lifetime. You know, you're doing the interview. I picked you because, frankly, I never heard of you, but that's okay. I picked you, Terry, but you're not being very nice. He had MS-13 tattooed.
I agree to disagree. I want to move on to something else.
It's so painful to watch.
I saw the picture. We'll
and you think it was Photoshop. Well,
here we go.
Don't Photoshop it. Go look.
I'm sorry. I talked over it. That was my fault. I'm sorry about that. But that's a huge part that we just missed.
Disagree. I want to move on to something else.
Terry, do you want me to show you the picture?
I saw the picture.
And you think it was Photoshop?
Well, here we go.
Don't Photoshop it. Go look at his hand. He had MS-13.
He did have tattoos that can be interpreted that way. I'm not an expert on them. I want to turn to Ukraine. I want to get to Ukraine.
No. He had MS, as clear as you can be, not interpreted. This is why people no longer believe the news, because
when
it's
he was
fake
photographed
news.
in El Salvador, they aren't there. But let's just go on. They aren't there when he's in El Salvador.
They weren't there, but they're there now, right?
No,
but they're
in your picture. Ukraine, sir.
He's got MS-13 on his knuckles.
Unbelievable.
All right.
Okay?
We'll take a look at that.
You do such a disservice.
We'll take a look at that,
Why don't you
sir.
just say, yes, he does, and go on to something else?
It's contested. The travel is down.
Okay. All right. So let's just take a look, because you know, and we saw this at the time. You saw a lot of people who did take it that way when he showed this picture. So here's a little breakdown. This is the original truth that he sent out. This is the hand of the man that the Democrats feel should be brought back to the United States because he is such a fine and innocent person. They said he is not a member of MS-13, even though he's got MS-13 tattooed onto his knuckles, which, again, we gave him the benefit of the doubt at the time that we covered it because it was so bizarre. 2 highly respected courts found out that he was a member of MS-13. That's not true. No court has ever found that he's a member of MS-13. Beat up his wife, etc. I was elected to take bad people out of the United States, among other things. I must be allowed to do my job. Make America great again. Okay, so this is what he shared, which is quite obviously, this is so badly photoshopped, I could probably do it, and I barely know how to do Photoshop. You could probably go to any number of meme generators and do this yourself. Here he is. And Benny Johnson, very sarcastically, that's an interesting tattoo for just a regular Maryland man to have in his hand. So this is after Trump truths that out. Benny Johnson backing him up. But even he does not seem to think they intended the MS-13, the literal spelling out of it, to represent what's actually on his knuckles. People interpret it as they're saying that's the code that he has.
Yeah, that was a key.
That was a key to what he has on his fingers. No particular evidence for that, but benefit of the doubt. Okay, so you're saying the marijuana is an M, the S is a smile, and so on. But okay, all right. So Benny Johnson took it that way, and you can see very clearly there is no MS-13 on this guy's hand. There are many, many pictures that include his hand that show there's no, I mean, as if you really need to litigate this, all you really have to do is look at that. Clearly, that is not on his hand.
Yeah, but
okay, go ahead.
Okay, so I don't think this is necessarily a bad Photoshop. I don't think whoever put MS-13 on those fingers actually wanted the public to believe those were tattoos. I think they put them there just to show, okay, marijuana M, smile S. The last two symbols are very vague. That's why I say it's a stretch to say that symbolizes MS-13, because a cross and a skull represents 13. I don't really see that. And besides that, we've seen MS-13 gang members in El Salvador. They have MS-13 tattooed all over them. They're not subtle about it.
You don't think any of them are subtle? You don't think any of them keep it on the down low?
But
I've seen people say that.
Oh, yeah, I know. I'm sure you've heard plenty of that. So I think that was pretty obviously superimposed by someone, not with the intention of tricking people into thinking those letters and numbers were on his actual fingers, but as a key, as a symbol key, to match up to the image.
Yeah.
I think the image got
that's
to
why
him.
they didn't even bother to do a better job, because why would you bother? Because a bunch of photos of his actual hand are going to surface and people are going to know you made it up.
Right. So whoever did that, I don't think was doing it to try and fool anybody. I think it got to him, and he actually believes it. He must actually believe it. I don't think he's lying there. If he were lying there, he would have let the interviewer move on from the subject, as the interviewer tried to do 5 or 6 times. The interviewer keeps saying, oh, well, they're just symbols. I'm not an expert. Let's agree to disagree. Let's move on. Let's move on. Trump said, no. Trump was emphatic that he make that point. If Trump were lying, he would have just let the guy move on. He wouldn't have insisted on staying on that for so long. Also, I have to say, as unbelievable as it is that Donald Trump could be such a boomer as to think that it actually said MS-13 on his hand, as unbelievable as that is, I think it's more unbelievable and worse that the interviewer didn't engage him on that the interviewer was so eager to move on. Donald Trump said, I'll show you the photo. He says, you want me to show you the photo? And the guy says, I've seen. At that point, if you're the interviewer, you say, yes, let's take a look at the photo. It's not a live interview. They have all the time in the world. Take a look at the photo. And at that point, you could point out to him what you mean, that it's just symbols, that it's not actually on his hand. And at that point, you have an opportunity to see how he reacts. If Trump reacts in a way that conveys genuine surprise, then you have a major story, which is that someone fed him this information that he completely misinterpreted, and apparently no one's home in his head that he can't tell the difference between a photoshopped photo and an authentic photo. That's a major story. And hanging in the balance, by the way, is a man's life who is being detained on suspicion that he's a gang member. So if you have an opportunity where the president's saying, let's take a look at the evidence, how do you not take that opportunity? Yes, please, let's look at it on camera. You have a chance to review evidence with the president on camera, and you're like, no, let's move on, whatever, symbols, I'm not an expert, we can agree to disagree. That is a shameful dereliction of duty as a journalist. That's access journalism. That's a guy who's afraid that if he embarrasses him, he's not going to be invited back. That is a disgrace, that you had an opportunity to clarify that with the president on camera and you chose not to do it. You chose to wiggle out of it. Not only was Donald Trump not trying to wiggle out of it, he was trying to force the issue. He's trying to force the issue in an instance where he is so clearly wrong. So clearly, comically, embarrassingly wrong. And you don't take the opportunity to clarify that on camera? That is a disgrace. That is an absolute dereliction of duty by that guy.
All right. So I think some of what's going on here is, these journalists are access journalists. They didn't just all of a sudden change their stripes because Donald Trump was in office. Remember his first term. They were so desperate to normalize him that when he launched an attack into Syria, Van Jones goes on, talks about how he became president tonight. They were dying to reset the relationship so they could have that access. That didn't work because Trump kept calling him the fake news. The fake news media kept doing things that were off script. So they had to go full resistance. This time, they don't know what to do. He won a lawsuit against CBS. You have producers resigning because they're scrutinizing Trump stories in a way they never did before. They want that access to continue. At the same time, they're probably almost to a person ideologically opposed to the Trump administration. So he doesn't give in on the point that the photo was not photoshopped. But at the same time, he doesn't want to pursue it and lose the access. He knows if he gives him a hard interview, not only will he never interview Trump again, ABC will never interview Trump again. So this is the position these people have put in. As far as what Trump was thinking there goes, I might split the difference with you. We talked about this a little offline about the possibility that Trump is just going full Orwell. The command of the party is the essential command to ignore your eyes and ears. He might just be going full that. And we know, being in this space and interacting with a lot of commenters, there are a ton of people who will just go along with what he said there, who are going to attack you. Oh, what are you, a blue hair? just going to swallow it. But another possibility is that he knows it's photoshopped, and he thought the idea was that they were supposed to sell it as real, not that it was a code. That's kind of a middle ground there. He might understand it's Photoshop, but think that's what they're trying to do and not have understood it was a key.
It's possible. I'm not going to say it's not possible. I think there's a greater than zero chance that you're right. However, I just don't see him bringing it up 6 times and not letting it go unless he really thought he was right.
Maybe not, but he's such a deranged narcissist.
Well, yeah. Well, it's also it could be a double psyche thing. Hey, if I really double and triple down, people are going to think I'm telling the truth. There's always a possibility that there's an extra level of manipulation on top of what you. That's possible.
Well, also,
if I had to bet everything I own, I bet based on that he actually believes it. If I had to bet,
Okay, so he's asked about tourism, and he says is just nuts. This is what you have to understand about Trump. He can be very funny, and he can read as very charismatic. That's been the key to his success. He is a pathological liar to a degree that's almost unimaginable. You want to talk about, to use one of his favorite phrases, we've never seen anything like it. We've really never seen anything like a politician who lies as easily and casually as Trump does about the most obviously provable things. So let's hear what he says about tourism.
Travel is down into the United States from around the world. It feels like there's been reputational damage.
The country's doing great. Well, prices are down. Not the tourism. Gasoline's down. Energy's down. Tourism is going to be way up. Wait till you see the numbers. The tourism is way up.
I know.
Now, Canada, tourism's doing very well. We're doing very well. We're doing very well. Wait till you see the real numbers come out in 6 months from now. Wait till you see the numbers.
But do you think, I'm going to ask you, if I may, do you think the reputation of the United States,
the CCOT experience,
has gone down under your presidency?
No, I think it's gone way up, and I think we're a respected country again. We were laughed at all over the world. We had a president that couldn't walk up a flight of stairs, couldn't walk down a flight of stairs, couldn't walk across a stage without falling. We had a president that was grossly incompetent. You knew it, I knew it, and everybody knew it, but you guys didn't want to write it because you're fake news.
All right. Thank you.
And by the way, ABC is one of the worst. I have to be honest with you.
Yeah. Okay. All right. So, and this is part of the secret of his success too, because is he wrong about ABC News? He mixes up some truths that the establishment is very embarrassed by and doesn't want to speak. It's very obvious to most of the public. So even as he just conducts himself as just an incredibly pathological lying degenerate, he's able to come off as a truth teller because he'll throw something like that, and it's true. Did they cover for Biden? Of course they did.
Right.
Of course they did. But in terms of the substance of what he's saying, this is from a financial services firm that just did a whole presentation projecting how the tariffs are going to play out and lead to a recession by May, almost upon us now. Fewer Europeans traveling to the United States. You could see just a total collapse in European travel. Foreign tourists, total collapse. Canadians are boycotting American vacations. Let's look at the numbers we have so far. International visits to the United States fell about 14% this March compared to last year, according to data compiled from the Department of Commerce, U.S. Customs and Border Protection, and other organizations published by the U.S. Travel Association. Data from Canada shows that March saw a 26% annual decline in overnight land trips, with air travel down 14% from last year. The U.S. Travel Association reported that even a 10% reduction in Canadian visitation would cost the U.S. 14,000 jobs and over $2 billion in revenue. Western Europeans are also following suit. They've declined visiting by 17% in March for the first time since 2021. Visitation from Asia is still 25% below pre-pandemic level, while South America visitation is down 10%. Okay, we covered a story. Palm Springs is begging the Canadians to come back. And part of that story was these numbers are just the beginning, because most people who book international travel, they don't book that last minute. They book that months in advance, a year in advance. You're really going to see this as time goes on. We know people in the tour industry. I know people who are saying there are no bookings from Europe for the summer as of yet. So the further this timeline gets out, if you're already seeing a drop in March and Trump just got in office, wait. This is the summer travel season is going to tank, and the Christmas season is going to be a lot worse. But according to Trump, everything's great. Everything's great. We've never been so respected. Everything's wonderful. Tourism is up. Now, if that's not a pathological liar, what is it? Everybody knows. Everybody knows these numbers. They've been out there for a few weeks now. Everybody knows international travel to the United States is collapsing, not least because of the abuse of people coming through our borders, just tourists, coming through our borders are getting strip searched and cavity searched. Yeah, that's going to make you want to come to the U.S. when you already hate the administration. So just straight out lying, which he does all the time. He just improvs.
Yeah, and on top of being, just very dishonest about the way things are going right now and the way they have gone in the past 100 days, where we've done several segments about how tourism has really slumped, completely delusional that, it's going to turn around, it's going to be great. Why? Why would you come here from a foreign country? Why? These are not necessarily isolated incidents. We've covered, just on our show alone, repeated stories of tourists being detained, shaken down.
They abused one German man so badly he had to be hospitalized.
Yeah, it's just
put through him in a cold shower.
Yeah,
why would you come here? 75% of academics now say they don't want to come to the United States. From overseas. So this was just one last thing that he asked him one last question about Americans worrying that he's authoritarian in a way no president has been. And this is how he responded.
What do you say to people who are concerned you are seizing too much power and becoming an authoritarian president like we haven't had before?
No, I would hate them to think that. I'm doing one thing. I'm making America great again. We have a country that was failing. We have a country that was laughed at all over the world. We had a leader that was grossly incompetent. He should have never been there. The election was rigged. He should have never been there. Our country suffered greatly, and now our country's coming back like nobody can believe. I have editorials just today where they're saying they've never seen anything like it. They love it. Our country's coming back, and we're respected again.
Okay. Again, don't believe your eyes and ears. It is the most essential command of the party. He's just going to keep doing this as the country goes into a ditch. As the shelves empty, he's going to say, and he says this at other points in the interview, it's going to take time to reset after so many years of people ripping us off. He's going to keep saying that, and you're going to have a smaller and smaller pool of people who are going to be willing to accept that. But as people's finances just completely get driven into the dirt, you're covering UPS today, right?
Yeah.
20,000 workers laid off at UPS. We just showed you the numbers on unemployment claims. You're seeing signs in the broader economy, like the McDonald's numbers, of people cutting back on spending. he's just going to keep selling this line. Oh, greatness is just around the corner for as long as he can get away with it.
Yeah, and on top of being a liar, he's also, I think, what that MS-13 Photoshop mix-up really proves, almost beyond any doubt, is that he is extremely impressionable. He believes the last thing that the last person told him, which is why, Bill Maher said in his conversation with Trump would actually probe him. Hey, what do you think about this issue? Because I think he actually does lean on people for input. Right. He's like a Cosmo Kramer in that way. You could probably convert that guy to communism in a few hours if you showed him the right shit. Right. And I think the Photoshop thing really kind of proves that. And so when he talks about, I'm getting editorials saying things are going great, he probably is. He probably is being spoon-fed shit by the real diabolical bastards around him, Stephen Miller and whoever his chief of staff is, who's Wiles, right? They could show him anything. When he starts about, he'll come off on the debate stage. Oh, that's beautiful. Yeah, they're saying I won the debate 90%. I'm sure there are online polls at junk sites, hillarysucksballs.biz that show him winning the debate 90%. I don't think he knows the difference, certainly not at first glance anyway, between that and a reputable scientific poll. I really don't think he does. I think if you can't tell that the letters MS13 are photoshopped on, then I don't think you could tell the difference between a good poll and a junk poll. I really don't. So I think you have a combination. I think you have a pretty dangerous combination of a guy who doesn't care what the truth is on top of a guy who's really not equipped to determine what the truth is.
It's a good question because you have to have some knowledge of what the truth is to lie as much as he does. Because very often it's pretty clear that it's not just that he's been fed false information. He's just lying. He just lies all the time.
He does do that too.
He just constantly lies. He was asked about Doge at one point in this interview, and he goes, "Oh yeah, they've saved $150 billion." Trump didn't forget the $2 trillion promise.
Right.
He's going on about waste, fraud, and abuse. I almost included it, but I didn't want to drag out the segment. He says, because Moran asks him, so are there referrals for prosecution if there's all this fraud? I remember at one point, the story went away very quickly. Elon was claiming there was somebody who was getting hundreds of checks from Social Security that they were about to arrest. Have you seen that arrest? Where is that arrest?
Right.
So Moran kept pressing him. So there were referrals. And finally he says, yes, there were referrals. You really think there were referrals? If there were referrals, you would have heard about it. You would have heard about it because they would have trumpeted it to the heavens. So clearly they didn't find all this waste, fraud, and abuse they claim if there has not been a single arrest. Not a single arrest. No welfare queen got dragged out of their house. Nothing. So that's where I would hesitate to present him as a babe in the woods because he clearly lies with intent and foreknowledge frequently. One could say constantly.
Yeah, I think it's both. And I think depending on the circumstances, in certain instances, it's 75% of one, 25 of the other. And in some cases, it's, the inverse of that. But yeah, it's definitely a combination of the two for sure. Hey, we're at 677 likes. Thanks, everybody, for being here. Appreciate that. Smash that like button. We are approaching 2,000 in the YouTube chat. Let's make sure we get there so we can give you a $19.99 sound drop. Appreciate everybody being here. Super chats are super helpful, so thank you very much.
The old man chair is complicated to get out of, but I'm stepping away.
Oh, all right. Let's see here. Putz the Mouse says, as always, I love you guys. Thank you, Putz the Mouse. Appreciate that very much. AD says, I'm sure that Michael Rappaport's trips to Israel are adding to their brain drain as well. Well, yes, that certainly brings down the average. No doubt about that. 100% sure about that. All right. While Russell has stepped away, we are going to take a moment to do our supporter scroll. Hey, we had a great supporter stream last night. It was a lot of fun. So thank you, everybody, for joining us. That is still available to be viewed on the replay. If you sign up today, you can subscribe at dudissidents.com/Patreon, /Substack, or /Locals. The links are all up there at the top of the screen, and your membership helps tremendously to support this operation. Perks of signing up for just $5 a month or $50 annually, which gets you 2 free months, are as follows. You get your name up in lights here on the show scroll. You also get call-in access to our post-show Q&As every Sunday night. You get 2 bonus live streams per month. Both are interactive live streams. One is content and call-in. One is film club and call-in. And you get full ad-free replays of every live stream the day after they air live. So if you miss a show and you want to watch it back, but you don't want to watch the ads every few minutes, if you sign up for just $5 a month, you get an ad-free replay of the live stream emailed to you the day after that they air. So the links are dudissidents.com/Patreon, dudissidents.com/Substack, or dudissidents.com/locals. If you're watching on Rumble, you can join our locals by clicking the bright red join button underneath the video player. Thank you all very, very much for your supports. EO Shush said, with their release, this is the biggest threat to the Constitution in our 250-year history. If Trump doesn't have king-like powers to arrest and deport who he wants, do we live in a democracy anymore? Thank you, EO Shush. Appreciate that. Let's see. Before Boo-Boos and Beanie Babies, Corn Pop ran the largest counterfeit ring of pet rocks and lava lamps in the tri-state area. Thank you, Abiding. Appreciate that. Noah Goop says Canadian prepper interviewed on ex-nuclear plant operator who explained why bombing Iranian facilities wouldn't cause a leak like Chernobyl unless they hit the actual nuclear plants. Thank you, Noah Goop. Wow. Appreciate that.
For old time's sake.
And Corn Pop was a bad dude.
Yeah, there you go. I haven't had that in a while. That is for old time's sake. Putz the Mouse says, as always, love you guys. Thank you. Appreciate that. Brad Gilbert over on YouTube says, Trump is the swamp. Immigration is just their problem created by Dems to spark the reaction of Trumpers so Trump can be selected for the solution. Thank you very much. Brandon Guillory says, Orange Biden strikes again. Yeah, man, if he actually does believe that those letters were on his fingers, then you do have a Joe Biden type situation. You do have a 25th Amendment situation there, in my opinion. I mean, if you are not capable of discerning that, then you're not capable of being in the executive position. That's what I think. All right, folks, we are going to move right on along here. So we touched upon this a little bit in the last episode, but I wanted to do not a long piece about this, but I wanted to get into this a little more. More Perfect Union tweets out yesterday, UPS announced it will cut 20,000 jobs this year and close 73 buildings. This is on top of 12,000 jobs cut last year. The company said the layoffs and closures are in connection with our anticipation of lower volumes from its biggest customer, Amazon. Now, there's some dispute as to how much the tariffs have to do with this. I find it unbelievable that they don't have anything to do with it, but that is not the whole story. So we're actually going to take a look at a couple different articles which accentuate different elements of this. So the first one is The Guardian. UPS cites Trump tariffs as it announces expected layoffs of 20,000 workers. The United Parcel Service is expected to cut about 20,000 jobs in 2025 as a part of a larger plan to reduce costs and increase profits, citing changes in the global trade policy and new or increased tariffs. UPS announced the layoffs on Tuesday in its first quarter earnings report. The parcel delivery service said it made consolidated revenues of $21.5 billion compared with $21.7 billion about the same time a year ago. Additionally, the company said it would be shuttering 73 leased and owned buildings by the end of June this year. So that is coming up pretty quick, end of second quarter. The actions we are taking to reconfigure our network and reduce costs across our business could not be timelier, Carol Tomei, UPS Chief Executive Officer, said in a statement. The macro environment may be uncertain, but with our actions, we will emerge as an even stronger, more nimble UPS. The service currently has roughly 490,000 employees, about 330,000 of whom are members of the Teamsters Union. Last year, UPS said it cut its workforce by 12,000 jobs. In Tuesday's report, the company said it planned to make these latest reductions to its operational workforce, or those who are directly involved in package sorting, transport, and delivery. So they're not talking about cutting management, they're talking about cutting on the labor side. The job cuts come as Donald Trump's sweeping tariffs are discouraging some UPS customers from shipping as many goods, and Americans are anticipating continuous impact on U.S. and global trade. The company cited current macroeconomic uncertainty as preventing it from providing any updates to its previously issued forecast for revenue and full-year outlook. The Teamsters Union responded to the latest earnings report by reminding UPS that it was contractually obligated to create 30,000 Teamsters jobs under the current agreement. If UPS wants to continue to downsize corporate management, the Teamsters won't stand in its way, the Teamsters General President Sean O'Brien said in a statement. But if the company intends to violate our contract or makes any attempt to go after hard-fought, good-paying Teamsters jobs, UPS will be in for a hell of a fight. So because of, I would assume, right-to-work laws being on the books in so many states, there's actually a decent number of UPS workers who did not join the Teamsters Union. Of the 490,000 employed by UPS, only 330,000 of those are union members. Now, that is a majority, and I have to assume that in order to keep the shit to shoe level with the unions, that the layoffs will be mostly of non-union employees, which is a wake-up call for those who decided they were better off not joining the union, because
it would be great for their recruitment.
Yeah, it would be great for recruitment. That's for sure. That's for sure. But there's another element here. UPS is cutting 20,000 jobs. It's not what you think. So I think tariffs were the impetus for doing this as quickly as they're doing it in anticipation of decreased demand. But they forecasted that they were going to do this before the tariffs hit. And the real reason is probably even worse and even more bleak than the tariffs themselves. So UPS will cut 20,000 jobs this year, about 4% of its global workforce, the company said Tuesday. But UPS added the decision is unrelated to tariffs and is instead due to increased use of technology and a previously announced plan to trim its Amazon business. UPS in January announced a glide-down plan to cut its business with Amazon, its largest customer, in half by the middle of 2026. UPS CEO Carol Tomé said Tuesday that most of the Amazon business that is giving up is not profitable for us, nor a healthy fit for our network. The UPS package volume from Amazon was already down 16% in the just completed quarter, which was a bigger drop than UPS had forecast for the period. UPS said it will close 73 U.S. buildings by the end of June as the next part of that glide down path. Now, here's the rub. UPS also said it expects to use more automation in its facilities, from sorting packages to label application to loading and unloading trucks, with 400 facilities becoming partly, if not fully, automated. So that's the real story, in my opinion. I mean, the tariffs are probably aggravating this and probably accelerating this. But in addition to the 73 buildings they plan to close, they plan to automate 400 more. 400 more, including loading, unloading, and sorting, which are all jobs that I did when I worked at UPS, which I'll talk about in a second. With this reconfiguration, we will also lessen our dependency on labor, she said. The CEO, we will lessen our dependency on labor. UPS did see some effects from Trump's broad tariffs of 10% on most imports, though, especially the 145% tariffs on Chinese imports. But the company is still uncertain about the ultimate effects. Tomé said customers that do a lot of business with China are not thinking about exiting the business, but she also said that many of them don't know exactly what their next step will be. Many are still hoping for a tariff rollback. Candidly, there's so much uncertainty around the China orders, she said. We know what's been announced. We don't know actually if it will happen, and we don't know if it will stick. We think there are many things we don't know. UPS does believe its customers will feel an impact from the tariffs, and because of that and the pullback from Amazon, it forecasts its own revenue will fall in the second quarter compared to a year ago, but it said it is not ready to drop its own full-year guidance, although it warned it could adjust that in the future as well. So, to me here, there are two stories. One is the tariffs. The second is the move towards automation, which is what Lutnick was signaling will happen if they build
And
these
Bassett.
factories, and Bassett as well. So the sorting of the packages, as someone who did this, it's a brutal job. Basically, the way it works is you got guys unloading the trucks onto belts, and then, I mean, thousands of packages a day come past you, and there are 4-color belts, and you have to basically one by one load each package onto the belt. So you have the belt about your torso height. There's the belt right above you. That was the blue belt in my example. Right behind you, there's a belt on the floor, which is green, a belt at your torso height, which is red, and then a belt above you, which is yellow. And so literally all day, every second, you're grabbing up here, down here, red, yellow, blue. You're doing reps all day, 7 hours straight with 1 10-minute break.
Jesus.
It is not fun. I hated doing that. The loading I thought was easier. Even though there's more organization involved, it's not that all day. But that is something they can probably automate. I always thought it was weird that you had like 12 guys doing that. I'd say, why not just run the conveyor belts into the trucks and then just have whoever's loading the trucks read the label and sort? It'll take a little bit longer, but if you're worried about the bottom line, you save a whole lot of labor doing it that way. Well, that was probably a stupid idea compared to what the geniuses in AI Overlordville have in mind. They'll probably figure out a way to just automate that. Like, a lot of these jobs are just going to go away. They're just going to go away. She said, we're doing this to increase profit. The bottom line is here, and I've said this every step of the way when it comes to trade, when it comes to immigration, they, meaning the rich, the oligarchs, the CEOs, the management class, will find a way to fuck you, the worker. They will always find a way to fuck you over. That is why you need an organized labor force, because their job, what these people get paid to do in the executive boardrooms at UPS, is to maximize profits for shareholders. Employees are not necessarily shareholders. In most cases, they are not shareholders, which means the executive's obligation is not to you, the worker, it is to the shareholder, and you, the worker, are considered a cost. They can call you a resource all they want. That's bullshit. They consider labor a cost. And what do business people like to do with costs? They like to minimize them. They like to minimize them. Now, I think the tariffs are pouring gasoline on this fire. I think they are accelerating this process because of the tariffs. But the writing was on the wall back in January. They seek to downsize. They seek to eliminate jobs and replace workers with robots and AI systems. And so this, in particular, when you're talking about UPS, is especially dire because, number one, UPS, as was hinted at in these articles here, and it's true, has one of the strongest unions backing the workforce. UPS is widely known as having great benefits, not only for the workers, but for their entire families, pensions, 401ks, the whole thing. That's why I wanted to work there. When COVID happened, everything that I had been working on, with like retail and tourism, that was completely wiped out. So I thought I was going to have a new career. I thought, all right, I'll just work for UPS because the benefits are so good, because the union is especially strong. That's number one. Number two, the number one employer of men without a college degree is transportation and logistics, specifically trucking. So if they start automating these warehouse jobs out of existence, that is going to really hurt the working class in a major way, because UPS recruits drivers from their preloaders. That's the way it works. You start out loading packages in the middle of the night, and then when you put in a few years doing that, you get a chance to drive the truck. They don't just bring you on as a driver right away. It's very rare that they do. You usually have to know somebody. You have to be the nephew of a manager whose nephew was probably a manager himself, right? So that's kind of the way it works there. So this is very bad. It's very, very bad. The fact that 1 in 25 UPS workers are being laid off, and this is just the start. This is just the start. They're saying there's a lot of uncertainty. This could get even worse.
Yeah, this is what I believe is going on at this point. Marx predicted that ultimately capitalism would yield to socialism and communism. Xi in China just recently gave a speech in which he argued that all of the evidence indicates that historical determination holds up, that inevitably the world will move towards socialism and communism. Now, whether or not it's true that that's a historical inevitability, what Marx predicted, that eventually capitalism would create a level of productivity that would allow for a society like that, I think is being proven correct. The thing is, the oligarchs who own your country, the oligarchs who own your society, not only don't want a world like that, they are terrified of the idea of a world like that, because in a world like that, they don't have that power. They don't have that privilege. And in the end, that's what these people live for. What is the difference between $100 million and $500 billion in terms of your quality of life? Zero.
Right.
So why do you pursue $500 billion? Because you like the status and power. There's no other motive for it. To live in a world where people don't have their boot on the neck of workers, that's a terrifying world for them. That's what they live for, to have their boot on your neck, even as they implausibly tell you that they're on your side and fighting to restore jobs to America. Besant and Lutnick both made it very clear they know damn well they're blowing smoke up the working class's ass, even if the factories come here. When they were asked, where will the labor come from? Oh, it's going to be AI. Oh, it's going to be automation. The question of our time is, can you have capitalism without a need for workers? And the answer is no. The oligarchs' answer to that problem is feudalism. They are trying to reestablish feudalism. And if you look at a lot of the New World Order, globalists, own nothing and be happy agenda, I believe, as many do, that it's a depopulation agenda, because they know they don't need that many people anymore. And if you had the more out of work, disenfranchised, pissed off people you have, the more of a danger the public poses to the oligarchs. Less people are going to be more manageable. I personally think that's what's happening right now. The idea that these oligarchs are fighting for you and are going to restore prosperity to the working class, that's a pipe dream. And if workers and, middle class people don't wake up and start thinking about a world after capitalism, they and their children and their grandchildren are going to wake up to a world of a dictatorial feudalism with command and control over the population, the likes of which no totalitarian society in history has even dreamed of.
Yeah, no, 100%, 100%. And that is partly why they cling to this narrative. That explains the vicious anti-communism. That explains the just unhinged anti-China rhetoric, because they don't want you to imagine life under any other system. I forget who said it. Name is blanking on me, but who said it? You might know.
It's easier to imagine the end of the world than to imagine the end of capitalism.
Yes, exactly. Yeah. I forget who said that. I'm blanking. Somebody in the chat will know.
He opens capitalist realism with it, but it's a quote from somebody else.
Yeah, I forget who first said that. But yes, and that is going to become very, very necessary. Subtweet Batya Ungar Sargon, who is the subject of our next segments. But we'll take a few super chats first here. Brick Top says, "Are you kidding, Russell? The MS-13 was placed above the symbols to show what they represent." Yeah, we got it. We know.
Yeah,
we know. I'm just saying, at first it seemed like they weren't trying to trick us into thinking it was something different. And I still don't think they whoever put those letters there were trying to trick us. If they did, they'd have done a better job photoshopping. I think Trump is just that is wow.
Yeah.
That is crazy. Here we go. What do we got here? Daria says, hetero men pay attention. This is exactly what it's like being a RELP with narcissistic, pathological liar hetero man. You try to bring logic on every insane point, then analyzing it to death after. All right. Interesting perspective. Thank you for that. David Bozick, President Trump's megalomania is now on par with President Biden's sundowner illness. Yeah, I think his sundowning illness is on par with Biden's sundowning illness if he actually thinks that those symbols were real. Barbara Howard, thanks for the $5. Appreciate that. So much deception. I see the theater now completely exposed. So what's real and whom do we believe? The Yuppies, thanks for the $10. In defense of the guy who interviewed Trump, dude, it must be so exhausting with him because Trump floods the convo with BS. You're right. He absolutely should have pushed him, but that's corporate media. Yeah. That was a major opportunity blown there. Really terrible job. Really terrible job. Noah Goop says, first go-karts, then sharks, now wildfires. What's next? Locust, Netanyahu's firstborn. Goodwood. Noah Goop, thank you. The economy won't improve no matter the prices go up or down by a fraction as long as the wages stay low. It's the wages. That's right. Okay. Eric Rousseau says, never buy weed from the Easter Bunny. All I got was this stringy green plastic grass. Thank you, Eric Rousseau. Appreciate that.
You know, it was crazy just regarding my last monologue. I keep forgetting to mention this. I'll show it maybe in a roundup of photos on Sunday. So I go to this small town outside of Buffalo, Springville, little tiny town, right? They have a fucking cricket restaurant there, of all places. And they have a whole thing outside about why it's so much better for the planet and it's better protein. I was like, I don't even see this shit in shit-lib Manhattan. I didn't even see that in LA. They're selling cricket burgers in the freaking small town USA.
Wow.
Very weird, man.
That's crazy. All right. We are going to move right along here, folks. Given Trump's economic numbers really plummeting, given the public's bracing for disaster regarding these tariffs, most people are sort of waking up to the idea that a billionaire oligarch surrounding himself with other billionaire oligarchs does not mean the working class well. But one of these influencers is going down with the ship, I guess. Batya Ungar Sargon says, President Trump is reorienting the market around the idea of American prosperity. We owe something to the common good. It's something our elites who have gotten really comfortable getting rich off the backs of the working class is struggling to understand. This is what you call crashing out, folks. That's the new jargon of the day, crashing out. First of all, I know it's politically incorrect to say, and I'm not saying, she's not a bad looking person here, but she looks like she's been crying for days. She looks exhausted in this video. And it is exhausting having to cope this hard, this often, 24 hours a day, 7 days a week. So let's take a look at this rant about how no, this is actually all for the workers and how this is the economic and societal and almost spiritual, in a way, transformation that we've needed for so long.
The working class is going to bear the brunt of the price hikes, that the tariffs are inflationary. That's not what inflation is, okay? It's not inflation when an iPhone, which is a luxury good, starts to cost more for the elites who can afford to have a new iPhone every year. That's not the same as when gas and groceries become unaffordable. When we think about working class Americans bearing the brunt of something, you have to ask yourself, what are these people consuming that they have to consume that are not a luxury item? And that stuff is actually getting cheaper. Gas is getting cheaper and food is getting cheaper. So the idea that all price hikes are the same as the inflation that we just got through with Biden is just total nonsense. And
First of all, iPhones are not luxury items. If you're a gig worker, as I was for many years, who worked as a feudal serf for Uber and Lyft and DoorDash, you know what you need? You need a smartphone. Not only do you need a smartphone, you need unlimited data, and you need it to work. And you do have to replace it pretty often because those apps, when you have 5 of them running at a time, are quite taxing on the phone and the battery and the hardware and everything. So the idea that only elites need a new phone every year. No, gig workers need to replace phones quite a bit. Just about everybody needs a smartphone nowadays. And I really have a hard time thinking that all of these people, we talked a little bit about this on Tuesday's show, would be talking about how you don't really need these items. if it were a Democrat in office, right? All of a sudden, they're all hippies. All of a sudden, they all want us to join a commune, throw our phones away, live in a drum circle. Yeah.
It's like she watched Goodfellas and said, the way all Karen's friends are dressed, I want to look like that.
Yeah, right.
I want to look like a Yenta, but a 60s Yenta.
Yeah, right, exactly. Yeah.
Everything she's saying is just completely insane. No, just say elites a lot.
Yeah.
And it's going to get people's blood boiling against those elites with iPhones like, everybody. And if they don't have an iPhone, they have a Samsung, they have something equivalent to an iPhone. Yeah, no. Having a smartphone in a world where almost professionally and socially you have to have a smartphone. Yeah, right. No, that's just an elite concern. Yeah. The peasants are only worried about cucumbers and gas.
Yeah, exactly. They still have landlines. The peasants.
They still have landlines. Right.
Yeah.
Heard, Barry, from so many working class people, thousands of people write to me and say, I know things are going to get a little bit more expensive, but you know what? They have to, because this is unsustainable.
Those people are known as chuds. Chuds.
Thousands of working class people write to me and say they know things are going to get bad, but that's okay. Yeah, okay. Okay. Yeah. I want to know who those people are. I believe there are some.
There are. I mean, we see them. There are people who, because it's very easy to say that when you haven't felt the impact of these policies yet.
Right. Right. And when the people who have your email address are also on the Free Press's email address. Yes. There's more likely to be a lot of overlap there.
Yeah. Selective group.
Yeah. I hear from thousands of cab drivers every day who think, you know what? I'm going to email Batya Ungar Sargon talking about how, hey, really stay the course on this.
I hear she's the 793rd most listened to podcaster by Uber drivers.
Yeah, right, exactly.
Have to, because this is unsustainable. We've sold out our future to China, and something has to happen, and I am willing to pay more for that. If you have created a business that relied on a business model that down the road meant that your neighbors can never afford a home because they don't have a college degree, that is not sustainable. And I feel very sorry for people who did build those businesses. But you know what? Like, we are more than consumers as Americans. We are citizens of a nation. We are citizens of an electorate, and we owe something to the common good. And that is what we are seeing right now, is the market reorienting itself around the idea of what does American prosperity, not my prosperity, but American prosperity look like. And I think it is very hard for an elite that has gotten used to getting rich off the backs of the working class to fundamentally understand that.
I mean, that is just
holy Jesus.
I mean, that's just unbelievable. It's unbelievable. Okay, if you wanted, I mean, because she's made the point in several interviews, hey, and a lot of people have said this, and they're not wrong, that, hey, did you think it was going to be easy weaning ourselves off of Chinese goods and bringing back manufacturing here? Well, this is what it's going to take. Well, no, those two things don't connect. We can say, no, it's not going to be easy. That doesn't mean that this way you're going about it is going to work. There's no logical connection there. No, it would not be easy to bring back manufacturing here. You know what it would take? It would take a lot of time to retrain and reorient our workforce, and not only our workforce, but reorient our culture such that there could be a manufacturing workforce come back. And it would take tremendous investment mostly from the government at first, to get people oriented into working those kinds of jobs. A massive infrastructure plan would go a long way towards setting us up for a return of manufacturing. Put millions of people to work with their hands while you make the necessary investments in a manufacturing base. Then at that point, and that's at least a decade, I think, at that point, you can start leveraging tariffs when you are equipped to actually get a manufacturing base up and running yourself. You don't do it this way. You don't, at the drop of a dime, take office, 145% tariffs against China, When that happens, we'll be forced to bring back manufacturing. So what? We're going to get factories built overnight? Even if we get them built overnight, are there going to be unions? These people hate unions. She makes an unbelievably stupid and simplistic argument that, well, it was never going to be easy, so that must mean that this is the right way to do it. It's completely illogical. Not just completely illogical. This claim that food is going down is just wrong. It's just wrong.
I can see it even in the supermarkets up here. I've been surprised at how much things are.
Oh, of course. These are the trend lines for food. Is any one of those arrows pointing downwards? All the different categories of food? No, Donald Trump. That is not tattooed on my hand. That is an image with keys. So the glass of orange juice represents orange juice. That's how that works there. But yeah, I mean, it's obvious that it's not going down to everyone. So here we go. Some TikTok videos. This is what it's like for an average person wandering around a grocery store today. $20 for 42 bags of chips. Crazy. That should be $12. I know. I shopped Instacart for years. I lived in supermarkets for a couple years. I know what all this shit should cost. Way high. This is a few weeks ago. What is that? $21 for how many eggs? I can't see how. 60 eggs. And that's if you buy them in bulk. $8 for Walmart brand generic cheese.
Ain't no way.
$9 for a bag of MSG laden cold cut turkey.
God, don't touch that shit.
Yeah. That's what it looks like. We all know. This is the thing. You can't bullshit people about this because people buy groceries every week. Here's a guy here, Life with Darcy, talking about, and this really kind of struck a nerve with me because this is what I think about now too. You know, you used to just assume it's cheaper to cook than it is to get like takeout, right? You can't necessarily make that assumption anymore. Here he's talking about how when he was a kid, it was always more expensive to get McDonald's than it was to cook, but now, not necessarily.
Or was grocery shopping becoming Is it just me, or was grocery shopping becoming expensive? Okay,
not just you, man. It's been going on for quite a while.
I remember back in the day, my mama used to ask if I had McDonald's money because McDonald's was more expensive when we got things at home. All right. Now I try to go to the grocery store and I might as well went to McDonald's. I spent $37 buying things to make chili. You hear me? Chili. And I had half of the ingredients at home. If I wanted $37 worth of chili, I would have ordered a 2-liter gallon bucket from Wendy's. And I don't even think they make a 2-liter gallon bucket, but that's how much I deserve for $37 worth of chili. You know what? Being an adult is getting too ghetto for me. I can't even go to the grocery store to save money.
No, that's exactly right. Like, you know, when I'm doing food shopping and, you know, sometimes I'll shop like for, you know, the week, but a lot of times because the schedule's so crazy, I'll just shop for that night and I'll be like, all right, well, it's cheaper to cook than it is to get takeout. So I'll get the shit I need to cook thinking I'm saving money. It's $40. I'm like, we could order a pizza for like $20 and we could all eat. Isn't it cheaper to do? Like, groceries are so bad you can't even assume it's cheaper to cook anymore. That's how bad it is. You actually have to calculate. Wait a minute, am I actually saving money by cooking? Yesterday I went out. I got 2 meatballs, 2 pork chops, and a chicken cutlet for the boys, which was a ready-made chicken cutlet because I didn't feel like making one from scratch. So, little asterisk there. $23. And that's not with, you know, I made potatoes and like when you add everything else, like $40 just to cook at home. You can't even assume it's cheaper.
I went and got chicken breast yesterday, and I'm in Buffalo. Pound and a half was over $10.
Yeah, it's crazy. It's insane. And she's saying, the food is cheaper than it was. The food has gone down. It's only the elite products like iPhones that are going up. I mean, how delusional, like how pathetic are you? Like how, and you clearly have no analysis whatsoever because nowhere in her I don't know. I mean, I don't watch the free press. I will confess to that. I mostly boycott the free press. I only get it when it comes across my feed. Any concern about, hey, these people have sought to disempower labor as much as they could since taking office, which means even if your batshit theory is correct that this is going to revitalize our manufacturing sector, do you really think, given these people's labor policies and their attitude towards labor and organized labor, do you really think that's going to bring the working class back? It is just such absurd cope to the point where it's deceptive. Like you're taking people for a ride. It's really sleazy.
Yeah, Trump's crafty minion Elon is party to a lawsuit to eliminate the NLRB as being unconstitutional, along with Lex Luthor, Jeff Bezos. They're suing to get rid of the NLRB. Batya Ungar, she started out with an anti-woke grift, and her shtick is this, basically to be an outraged yenta.
Yeah.
Now she's expanding into being a class warrior. She started with this take when Wall Street collapsed for a minute after Trump announced these tariffs. And now she's just doubling and tripling down on it. You know, this is what she's decided she's going to run with, that Trump is a class warrior. And that's it. Most of these people in this space, it's very competitive at the elite levels, like Batya is at now. And you got to stand out. You got to have a brand. You got to have something to make people come to you over the other people in that space, the other grifters. And her shtick is to be an aggrieved, shrill yenta.
Right. And a MAGA lefty. That's what she calls herself.
Yeah, MAGA. Yeah, very, very fucking left. So, does she believe this stuff? I mean, it's almost beside the point. People have an incredible, a tremendous capacity not to see a thing when their incomes depend on them not seeing it. To paraphrase, and she's just going to go all in on this take. And you have to remember, when you see a take like this, it doesn't really need to make sense. It just needs to appeal to the people she's making her filthy lucre off of, and it does. That kind of take does. They love that. What? All of a sudden you love Wall Street? She's feeding them that narrative to a certain audience. Now, I think just like the criminals in any kind of fascist regime, eventually, once the whole thing falls apart, they wind up being the most despised, maligned people in society. I believe these people are going to be those people very quickly. But for now, this is what they're going to go with.
Yeah, incredibly short-sighted if you are an opportunist, because the internet is forever. And boy, wow. I mean, what a thing to put out there now at this point. I mean, it's just crazy.
It's all for the workers.
Yeah, it's all for the workers, right. The Yuppie says, I think Trump is already in Orwell territory, but I don't know if I could say if I haven't read the book, LOL. Yeah, I mean, look, he kind of lives there. It's just, I mean, that MS-13 thing was really eye-opening. Alexis Hellwig says, actually, every company is more or less forced to reduce costs. The monetary system automatically sucks all money from the market and pushes it towards the creditors. That's fall systemic violence. Thank you, Alexis. Rox says, your work for the community is making a difference. Thank you. The ripple effect is real. Well, thank you. That's nice of you to say. I appreciate that. The one says, why do you think so many larger leftist channels are constantly defending Trump or making excuses for him by saying the Democrats did it first instead of calling out the blatant fascism?
I mean, that's not by definition making excuses for him. I mean, that is literally historically true.
Yeah.
That pretty much everything the Trump administration is doing is something that was done by or enabled by Democrats in one way or another, including the Patriot Act.
Yeah, and I don't think it's an excuse for what Trump's doing, but I do think that had he just won the 2020 election, that second term would have come and gone rather unremarkably. I think by stirring up the January 6th thing at first and then going after them as hard as they did in the interim to try and make sure that he wasn't going to become the president again with all the lawfare stuff, I think that definitely hardened him to the point where he felt, well, if I get back in power, I'm going to shove it down their throat, which means he's going to be more of a fascist. That's not an excuse. I mean, I'm not pro-fascist. That's not an excuse, but I'm just saying, like, the way they came after him definitely affected his approach this time around.
Right, going
and
after the law
It was a very
firms.
irresponsible thing to do, which was mostly based on bullshit. Yeah.
Right.
Yeah.
Right.
But I mean, I certainly don't think that's an excuse. I can't speak for anybody
I
else.
mean,
but,
I know what you're saying, that some channels will say that in a way that has a kind of admiration for what he's doing, but the critique itself is sound.
Right. Right. And whether they mean that as an exoneration or not, I mean, I'm not sure. I certainly don't. But we covered that while it was happening. You know, we said, you know, it's a mistake to go after him like this because he's probably going to win. And if he does, now he's going to come at you. You know, like you shouldn't go there. You shouldn't go there. And it's not just Democrats. A lot of this started under George Bush with the Patriot Act and stuff. And then it was re-upped by Obama. You know, there's definitely, as Russ said, either things that Democrats started or things that they continued when they promised to stop them. I mean, Barack Obama promised to close Guantanamo Bay. So did Joe Biden. 12 years between the two of them. They served 12 years. Was never closed, right? Marilyn Kelly, thanks for the $50. Thank you. Let's have a digital cowbell for Marilyn. Appreciate that. That's very kind of you. Says, I forgot to add bucks for previous posts. Thanks for what you do. Beautiful. He's hanging on actual photo above Knuckles. Giggles. Yeah. Quite crazy. Quite crazy. All right, let's move on here. Eric Rousseau, gang members tattoo MS-13 on their faces and all over their bodies. No secret codes. They are proud with it. Yeah, that's what like we've seen a lot of pictures of gang members who are in MS-13. They say MS-13 on them.
According to our favorite author, A. Chud, there are some who are more subtle and reserved.
Exactly. Oops, sorry, got that one already. Killer Hinton says, I guess I should have my MST3K tattoo removed. Yeah, not a good time to open a tattoo parlor, I gotta say. He's really, you know, we talk about tourism, we talk about, you know, all this stuff.
You haven't dug into the numbers on that.
No, this can't be good for the tattoo business. I can't imagine this is good for the tattoo business. All right, let's move right on along. Oh, this is a fun one. All right, we get to have some fun at the Democrats' expense.
Been a while.
Yeah.
So you might remember back in February, we covered this at the time. The DNC had a chair race that seemed to be an exercise in demonstrating to the public in dance and song exactly how Trump won. So we're going to look at a little bit of that.
The Democratic National Committee wishes to acknowledge that we gather together to state our values on lands that have been stewarded through many centuries by the ancestors and the descendants of tribal nations.
My name is Troy Blackwell. I know that I'm a new face to many of you, but I'm a proud Afro-Latino from the South Bronx, New York. I got into this work because at the age of 18, unfortunately, I was the victim of a hate crime. Today I stand before you as one of the first non-binary candidates to run in the DNC's 177-year history.
I am speaking, and I would love your attention. There is a black woman at this podium, and I deserve your attention like the 11 people who went before me. Yes, I am speaking.
The order of balloting is designed to ensure.
Okay, we're gonna get into this because the balloting is so cockamamie that now the results are being challenged several months later. So that was quite a display that they put on. Now, one of the most interesting things about it is this is really the DNC written large. In spite of all of that virtue signaling to different identity groups, they wound up with the most melba-toast white man in the DNC chair position that you could possibly imagine. So we can't use this music because we used it the first time we covered this. So we'll just go with the schmato. Very catchy. Yeah, so that is your DNC chair that you wound up with at the end of all the non-binary and black women at the podium virtue signaling.
It really is an insult to the Afro-Latino non-binary community that they lost to that guy.
I mean, that's got you really got to go back to the drawing board and have a meeting when that happens.
Yeah.
So
You need
here's
a Tea Party movement within the Afro-Latino non-binary community.
They gotta overthrow David Wilcox.
Yeah. Right.
So all right. So here's a little bit of David Hogg's acceptance speech. He, of course, was one of the victims of the Parkland High School shooting, and has become a big activist for gun control. Is involved in an organization that actually primaries Democrats, which is the cause of some consternation now, and very, 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 very white. Very white.
Go and kick some ass. Let's go win our young people back, and let's stop sending just our thoughts and prayers to address gun violence and do something. Are you ready to do that? Because together, we can make school shooter drills history and not headlines. Are you ready to do that? Together, we can address the housing crisis and so many other issues of our time that are affecting our young people. Because tonight, Malcolm and I won with your support. Thank you so much. You guys rock, and thank you again to Jamie. Thank you to Justin. Give a round of applause to Justin Pearson. And all my friends in the young Dems, the college Dems, the high school Dems. I love you guys so much. I could go on and on. Let's go party.
Let's go tuck some cocks.
Yeah, he makes William H. Macy look like Busta Rhymes.
Yeah.
So so that's what they wound up with at the end of all that virtue signaling. A lot of white dudes at the top. But now they're not too happy with David Hogg, because with his organization, he has announced that he's planning on primarying Democrats, specifically with under 35 candidates. Mr. Hogg, 25, who emerged on the political scene as an outspoken survivor of the 2018 school shooting in Parkland, Florida, said his party must squelch a pervasive culture of seniority politics that has allowed older and less effective lawmakers to continue to hold office at a moment of crisis. And so he is planning through a separate organization where he serves as president, Leaders We Deserve, to intervene in primaries in solidly Democratic districts as part of a $20 million effort to elect younger leaders and to encourage a more combative posture against President Trump. So it did not take long for the backlash to come. Basically, the DNC leadership has been telling him he can be involved with his not-for-profit that primaries Democrats, or he can be DNC vice chair. He can't do both. Just a little bit from this article from Not Us. I never heard of these guys until they broke that Doge story. Quote, "We've got a lot of fucking problems right now," said one senior Democratic official granted anonymity to speak candidly. And now an elected office of the DNC is creating new ones. And at the end of the day, DNC leadership should be building trust, not threatening or eroding it. The official, who likened Hogg's anti-incumbent campaign to a middle finger to everyone who helped rebuild trust, wait for it, helped rebuild trust in the DNC following the controversial 2016 Democratic presidential primary, said he expects party officials and DNC members eventually move to push Hogg out of his role as vice chair, though this person acknowledged they didn't know of any concrete effort to do so. Skipping ahead a little, the ongoing frustration with Hogg is indicative of just how much anger he provoked when he announced his anti-incumbent plan last week. Now, I'm sure sharp-eyed observers had their heads exploding at the suggestion that the DNC has rebuilt their trust since 2016. Here's a dark crystal puppet turned politician, Dean Phillips in the picture, Biden's Democratic challengers hit ballot access roadblocks. I'm sure you all remember that. Biden will be
Couldn't have happened to a nicer guy.
Oh, yeah. Biden will be the only Democratic primary candidate in 3 states after parties exclude primary challengers. That was Florida, North Carolina, and Tennessee. Did not list any of the challengers on the ballot, much to the consternation of friend of the show, Marianne Williamson and Dean Phillips. So this is a little more of what Hogg had to say in an interview. His group would use a combination of factors to determine what sitting House member should be primaried. A memo announcing the initiative, obtained by Not Us, said the group would primary out-of-touch, ineffective House Democrats in solid blue seats, not frontline districts who are failing to meet the moment. Now, that's kind of amazing that they're going this batshit about it, given that they're playing that game where they're not going to threaten anyone who's not in a safe blue district. So at that point, you can't even make the argument, well, they're threatening seats and they're going to fall to Republicans. They're explicitly saying they're not going to threaten any seats that are not in a solidly blue district like AOC's. Quote, not that they're going to primary her, but for example, we're not going to look at somebody and just be like, well, this person is above a certain age, they shouldn't be there. That is not what we are doing, Hogg said. What we are doing is this person truly fighting? And if they've been there for decades, do they deserve to continue to be there? As for the challengers, they must be under 35 and have, as Hogg said, the ferocity, the energy, passion, and the grit to push the party forward. Now, here, if for anybody who's saying, you know, I kind of like the cut of his jib, he doesn't get it either. Quote, the division in our party isn't so much between the center and the left, Hogg said. It's, do you want to fight or do you want to roll over and die? Well, I would concede this point only in that there is no one on the left remaining in the party because they were all driven out. And that, in that sense, he might be right. There are 56 Democrats in the House ages 70 or older. There are only 30 Republicans in that same age group. So to that point, this just broke coincidentally. You might remember there was a lot of consternation about Connolly, who's old as dirt and a cancer survivor, being installed to a committee over AOC, who really bent the knee and mama bared for years to try to get back in the good graces of leadership. To no results thus far. Democrats' top oversight lawmaker set to resign following cancer diagnosis, potentially opening a door for AOC that closed last year. So the assumption, he was a chair on the oversight committee, is that she might take another crack at it. But they expended all this capital, pissed off all of the younger people that they have left in the party by installing this, well beloved by the establishment, and no disparagement to him, but elderly cancer survivor into that post instead of a younger face. That was how they handled things in the wake of Donald Trump's victory.
Bobby Bacala Sr. We need you to do one last thing. We need you to beat AOC.
We need you to keep. Hey, these people don't forget. They do not forgive. They do not forget. So here is Jeffries being asked about the moves that David Hogg is making.
So this idea of targeting some of your Democratic incumbents.
Well, I look forward to standing behind every single Democratic incumbent, from the most progressive to the most centrist and all points in between. They're working hard in their communities, rising to the occasion. This past week, we had, of course, a Medicaid Matters Day of Action, a Safe Social Security Day of Action, and we have to continue to do all of the things. Rallies, town hall meetings in Democratic districts, town hall meetings in Republican districts, days of action, telephone town hall meetings, site visits, press conferences. We are in a more is more environment, and more is going to continue to be required of all of us. Now, the House is the institution that is known to be was built to be the closest to the American people. That's why we have elections every 2 years. Primaries are a fact of life. But here's the thing. I'm going to really focus on trying to defeat Republican incumbents so we can take back control of the House of Representatives and begin the process of ending this national nightmare that's being visited upon us by far-right extremism.
My screen is melting from the heat and charisma that Jeffries brings to these interviews. Wow. I'm inspired. I'm fired up. I'm starting to rethink this whole post-duopoly thing. Guy's going to pull me right back in just when I thought I was out. So now they're taking their shot. Native American woman gets a chance to topple Hogg at DNC. You really can't make this shit up.
I mean, they did the land acknowledgement. I don't know what she's complaining about.
I don't know. I guess that was not enough for her. Some people are never satisfied. A candidate who failed to win a Democratic National Committee leadership role is challenging her defeat, the first threat to DNC Vice Chair David Hogg since he vowed to keep backing some primary challenges to incumbents. The DNC's Credentials Committee will meet virtually on May 12th to consider the challenge from Kaylin Free, a Native American attorney and party activist who lost a vice chair spot to Hogg at the party's February 1st meeting. In her complaint, shared with Semaphore by a Democratic source, Free argued that she lost a, quote, fatally flawed election that violated the DNC charter and discriminated against 3 women of color candidates and asked for 2 new vice chair elections. In February, after several rounds of voting, the race came down to 5 candidates: Kenyatta, Hogg, Free, and 2 other women. Kenyatta and Hogg claimed the open spots. Quote, by aggregating votes across ballots and failing to distinguish between gender categories in a meaningful way, the DNC's process violated its own charter and bylaws, undermining both fairness and gender diversity, argued Free, a citizen of the Choctaw Nation. She also had this to say.
Put a tick in it, make her gay.
Yeah.
That got a rousing ovation at the DNC. Free filed her challenge on February 28th, and committee members were informed yesterday that it would be taken up on May 12th. Attorneys for Hogg argued in a response to the committee earlier this month that the election, quote, was conducted in compliance with the rules in place at the time, and that it is inappropriate to try to revise those rules or decisions after the fact through a credentials challenge. An upcoming vote to require neutrality from DNC members wasn't actually about Hogg. According to DNC Chair Ken Martin, the purpose was restoring the trust of Democratic voters after anger at the superdelegate system that helped nominate Hillary Clinton in 2016 and facilitate the party's early endorsement of Joe Biden ahead of the 2024 primary. But some DNC members have spoken out against Hogg's PAC, and he leaned into the media coverage, Conflict Equals News, to do hours of interviews about the need to change the party. He told me last week that he would not quit the DNC if asked to, and that the party would have to force him out. All right, so the rules that she's talking about, let's see what those rules are.
The order of balloting is designed to ensure equal access to the ballot, regardless of gender identity. As we must elect a candidate of any gender as well as 1 male and 1 female vice chair, we will first ask members to elect a candidate of any gender on the first ballot. Any candidate, male, female, and non-binary, can be elected on that ballot. After a candidate is elected on the first ballot, we'll have 1 officer of the 3, so then we will know which position is filled of the 1 male, 1 female, and 1 vice chair of any gender. Our second ballot would also be for a candidate of any gender. Then our third ballot will be the 3rd position that is remaining based on the 2 results. either a male candidate if a candidate that is not male has not been elected, or a female candidate if a female has not been elected.
A trans with a Schmendrick swinging it in a girl's bathroom. It's perversion. It's sick. It's degenerate and sick.
It couldn't be more clear. It couldn't be more clear. I don't understand how this clear violation of those incredibly clear rules were violated.
So just to finish up, changing the endorsement rule at an August meeting wouldn't have automatically done that, meaning push Hogg out. But if the party agrees with Free and grants the relief she wants, it would hold new elections for vice chair, giving anti-Hogg members a chance to get rid of him. You know, I'm saying that they're going to line up behind this challenge just to push him out, but it is going to wind up just bringing people's attention back to the freak show that was the DNC chair race, and it's completely deranged, impossible to understand, non-binary charter.
Yeah, no, they don't care about anything except seniority and loyalty to the leadership. That's all they care about. They don't care about winning. It doesn't matter to them that he's only doing this in safe districts. That doesn't matter. It is a career ladder. That's all the party is. It's really not a legitimate party. That's how a guy like Hakeem Jeffries, with no charisma, no talent, no vision, no platform, no leadership ability, no nothing, that's how he got to be the top ranking Democrat, because he takes a lot of Israel money. He raises a lot of money because he's in a center of capital, New York.
A lot of real estate money.
Yeah, a lot of real estate money. He backed Hillary Clinton very, very strongly in 2016. And so he is where he is, despite the fact that he has absolutely no talent whatsoever. That means nothing to them. It means absolutely nothing to them. How good you are, what a leader you are, whether you can win or lose.
The alphabet game.
Yeah, it doesn't matter. And the alphabet game, yeah, they like that. I mean, that was a little cherry on top for them. But yeah, that's how a guy like that rises in the ranks. You know, for Hogg saying, hey, I'm only doing this in safe seats, doesn't matter. Doesn't matter. Democrats think that getting elected to a safe seat gives you permission to do nothing, right? That's the whole point of running as a Democrat in a safe seat. You win, you get to be Jerry Nadler for however long he's been in Congress. You don't have to do anything. You're there, you can't lose. You can't lose to a Republican because there aren't enough Republicans in your district. And you can't get primaried because the party protects you. It's very much a mafia in that way. The party will protect you, so you don't have to do anything. And so, you know, for Hogg to think it makes a difference, or to think that, you know, people are going to give him a pass because he's only doing this in safe districts, he's misunderstanding the purpose of the party and what the party is fundamentally. It's really not a political party. It is a business. It is a career space. That's essentially what it is. And that's how it functions, no matter what. No matter what. Now, in terms of the actual gaming out of this, it's a question of, do the Republicans blow it bad enough where the Democrats can win being like this? And I think at this rate, they will. At this rate, unless things turn around, I think the Republicans are going to be so unpopular by the time the midterms roll around. Democrats probably will win doing nothing. That's another real tragedy of this, is that these people just fuck this up so bad that what you're probably getting back is another incarnation of the same neoliberal establishment that inevitably backslides back into this.
Yeah, they haven't done any soul searching. They have no new ideas. And if you look at David Hogg, he's just a next generation shitlib. He's just a shitlib that wants a younger generation like himself in charge of the DNC, which, you know, he's not wrong. I mean, obviously, the Democratic leadership is geriatric to dead. You need to cultivate a bench. You need to start to bring some younger people in. But he doesn't represent any meaningful ideological shift, any ideological change. This is a fight about who holds power within the organization. You don't hear a word about him questioning the underlying political beliefs of the DNC itself or the party as a whole. It's just a struggle for generational power that he's trying to spearhead. But even on that, you have to be a sweet summer child to think these people give a shit. Do they look like they give a shit? Do they act like they give a shit?
Even the fact that they wound up with that piece, that slice of Melba toast as the DNC chair after parading the binary non-Latino and the black woman who needs to be heard, the fact that they wound up with that should tell you what you need to know. Even on the narrow identitarian issues that they claim to champion, they don't give a shit about that either.
Right.
It's all about money, power, and career advancement, which he's finding out to his sadness, I think.
Yes, 100%. You want to take a chat break and then go into Carville? Or you want to go right into Carville?
Up to you.
Yeah, we can take a chat break. Sounds good to me. All right. Jimmy Dore is here. Hey, Jimmy.
Jimmy.
Thanks for getting up. That's right. It's not that early out there. That's right. We used to do these at 9 a.m., so it used to be really early for the West Coast, but now it's not. Pointing out that Dems paved the way for Trump's lawlessness is not defending him. That's lazy thinking. If you ignore history, you're bound to repeat it. Yeah, no, I mean, I agree. I think that's a big part of why I was so against a lot of the lawfare stuff, because
Right.
you know, what do they say? I don't want to say the wrong thing you know what? I'm just going to avoid that metaphor on YouTube altogether. But if you try and imprison the king, you better imprison the king. There, I'll say it that way. You know what I mean?
Yeah.
Like, you don't want to.
I mean, I know
off.
what you were going to say. I'm sure you could say that.
You probably say that, but you know, you never know. You never know. Hey, forget about YouTube. I'm said that's for Pam Bondi. I'm saying that.
Well, they
on
just
her bad side. Jesus,
I
they'll find me, Russell. They'll find me.
We will find you.
We'll find you.
Yeah, it is pretty amazing that they made the same mistake twice. They acted as if it was impossible for him to win both times, and they never thought through what the consequences would be if he did.
Right. Exactly. Janice Anderson, thanks for the $4.99. The people claiming food prices are down have probably never set foot in a grocery store. The hoarders don't food shop. They have servants for that. No, that's the thing. Like, you really can't bullshit people about groceries. Like, it's the one thing you can't bullshit people about. You can bullshit people about, like, televisions, because the average person only buys a TV every, 7-8 years or so. But not groceries. Not groceries. They're there every week. Jimmy, again, thank you for the $9.99. What's sad is critics of tariffs have no alternative plan except more of what got us here. Where is the competing plan to reinvigorate the middle class and manufacturing? Well, yeah, obviously. I mean, the Republicans are not going to add. What I think the alternative plan has to be is it has to start as a public works. I think you need a major infrastructure investment, which the Republicans don't seem to believe in ideologically. And the Democrats, said they were going to do it with Build Back Better, and then that completely failed, and we got the bipartisan corporate version of that, which years later, what are the results of that? But that's where I think it starts. I think you need to have a major infrastructure investment to get people working with their hands again. You need to get a generation of people working with their hands again. You know,
and also not in this way. You're going to have to think about jobs that cannot be done by machines and train them in that. And that's going to become an increasingly narrow category. That's why I say, really, it's not even about job retraining. You're still thinking in terms of the old premises of capitalism where you need a large workforce. You have to start thinking in terms of a world where you don't. So now you have to start thinking in terms of, you want to call it communism, whatever you want to call it. You have to start thinking about UBI.
Well, yeah, UBI, yeah.
And just, universal public education and public health. You need to start to think in terms of people no longer having to work or having to work minimally, or their work being public works projects, like a mass version of what was it called? The program for people to volunteer and they would get their college paid for.
Yeah, well, you're talking about the what was it?
Yeah,
called?
what was the name of it?
Project Administration, something like
that.
No,
not the WPA. Under Obama, there was something like that.
I forget. Yeah.
It goes back away. But basically, some kind of, hey, you go and help build your local library or something, so that people aren't, just sitting home shooting smack, or give them some sense of community and a reason to leave their houses. But the basic premise that you just have to retrain people for the jobs of tomorrow, that assumes the jobs of tomorrow exist. And I don't think that's a safe assumption between AI and automation.
Yeah, no, I don't think so either. Eric Rousseau says Pete Hegseth is getting himself a Trump tramp stamp. Thank you for that. Pete Seeker says they're using anti-Semitism as a Trojan horse to shut down free speech and protest ahead of the civil disobedience they see on the horizon when the economic collapse they engineered is coming. Yeah, well, that, and I would say immigration as well. I would say both of those things, but I think that's true. Trump's new TV show, Survivor, CCOT. Yeah, exactly. Yeah. Yes, thank you for that. Vito P says international tourists to Las Vegas down. How long before Miriam loses her cool? Cancer sucks. You guys rock. That's right. That's the cash business. That's the cash business over there. Appreciate that. Pete Seeker says, thanks, Russ Keaton, for being steadfast. Like Jimmy Dore, Gray Zone, Glenn Greenwald, I Am Blakely, and Norm Finkelstein. Judge Napolitano and antiwar.com. Thank you for that. Good shout outs there. Appreciate that. I'm looking forward to the Chinese AI sex robots that will rule our lives. The Belt and Booty Initiative. Eric Rousseau's got jokes today. He's on fire today.
Yo, man. When we have time, there was just too much real news to do today. There's video coming out of Shanghai of basically, they have a very plausible kind of steampunk sex robot out there on the street. Like this, clearly designed to be erotically charged robot on the street. And man, you look at that. Of course, people are going to be fucking these robots as soon as they're technologically feasible to perform such things. Like you can see, like we're almost there. We're almost there to a fuckable robot. If people will fuck a blow-up doll, they'll fuck a robot.
Just keep those robots away from Pete Hegseth. That's all I got. Yeah. All right. 2007 people. All right, let's go to Carville versus Hogg. We got a few more things on the agenda today. Don't go anywhere, folks. Please smash that subscribe button, smash that like button. Appreciate it. Great crowd in here today.
Just to clarify, someone in the chat was asking on the street. Yeah, I guess they were demonstrating it. Like this video is out there. I'm sure if you put in the right keywords, you can find it. Like there's, crowd filming it. But yeah, it was clearly meant to have erotic overtones. So who says those commies are uptight? So James Carville versus David Hogg. They were kind of bitch slapping each other from afar before they were brought together to air out their differences. So here's what James Carville had to say about David Hogg when he wasn't there.
Sue David Hogg. He's an officer of the Democratic National Committee. He is the vice chairman of the Democratic National Committee, and he's running against other Democrats. I would like to know, and you went to law school, does he have a fiduciary duty toward Democrats? If you work for News Nation, you can't promote CNN. That's because you work for somebody else. You have a fiduciary duty to your employer, which anybody can understand. He's being paid to run against other Democrats. I think it's an outrage. I don't know if I have standing, but I might give the DNC $10 and sue him. He's a contemptible little twerp, if you ask me.
Sue his ass, Jim. I'll have you on the show to talk about it.
I might. I don't know if I have standing, but somebody can standing.
Sue his punk ass. Start it right on this show.
He only there because he got shot at. I like people who didn't get shot at. How's that? Go full Trump McCain on him.
Back where I come from, we were taking you out to the swamp. We were shove cayenne pepper up your asshole, that kind of shit. We don't take that shit up in the bayou.
Look at Chris Cuomo instigating, sue his ass. Look at how he talks about it. Fiduciary responsibility. He talks about it like it's a business.
Right.
You have a responsibility to the shareholders here, not to rock the boat.
Well, and according to what the DNC argued in court, the DNC has no corresponding obligation to its voters to run a free and fair primary. They're free to defraud their voters, pretending to have a free contest. Apparently, you have more rules regulating a Burger King lottery than you have regulating the DNC's choice of a candidate. Yeah. So here's what David Hogg had to say.
The well-known Democratic strategist James Carville said in response to this announcement of this plan that you have to primary Democrats, he said that the DNC should sue you and called you, quote, a contemptible little twerp. What is your reaction to that?
Try it. That is my reaction. I would also say James Carville has not won an election since before I was born. I think it's time to have new leaders in our party that are ready to meet this moment, because a lot of the people that are most critical of this plan are the same ones that had $2 billion to win an election and still lost. So I think the experts can save it because it's time for some new ideas.
Go home and get your fucking shine box.
Shots fired. Shots fired. I gotta say that was pretty good. That was pretty good. So Tara Palmieri, who did you look this up? Is she Jennifer Palmieri's daughter? We think she's a Nepo baby because she landed James Carville and she's got like 10,000 subs on YouTube.
I'm assuming she's Jennifer Palmieri's daughter. If I'm wrong about that, I apologize. I mean, not really.
That's our theory.
I don't apologize if I'm wrong, but I might be wrong.
Yeah. Take a page out of Trump's book.
Oh, no, wait a minute. It looks like here. No, I guess not. No, because Palmieri.
Oh, she's not.
Palmieri is spelled Palmieri.
Palmieri, not Palmieri.
Right, Palmieri.
So
doesn't look like Palmieri has any kids. Yeah, she has childless cat lady vibes. If anyone ever did, so I guess that's true. Yeah, no, she's a single barren woman.
So look at this. You're throwing her under the bus. You probably worked her way up from the family's pizza shop to become a noted journalist here. We're assuming she's Jennifer Palmieri's daughter, even though the spelling's not even right.
Yeah.
Shame. For shame. All right. So this is a little bit of Carville talking about Biden, and then we'll get into the meat of it.
On Joe Biden to drop out of the race in 2022. Where were you? Where was the young cool generation coming? Did they step in there and say something? I spoke out against the horrific.
Okay, so that's a real straw man. Are you suggesting that the young generation didn't speak out against having Joe Biden as the candidate? Is that really what you're saying? The young people embraced Joe Biden. I think AOC was the only person under 40 who embraced Joe Biden. I personally never spoke to anyone under 70 who thought Joe Biden was a good idea.
It's a complete it's a complete rewriting of history. And if you take it back to 2020, the young people organized against the guy who was going to win, and then guys like Carville got together in a room and said, how do we stop this? Lead to Obama getting, all the minor candidates out of the way and behind Joe Biden. Like, the young people were about to win the primary were it not for people like Carville who intervened on Biden's behalf.
Right. Where were all the young people after we shivved their candidate?
Yeah, right. Twice.
language of identity politics. Where was everybody else? I said we should have a contested convention. No one else came together other than President Obama, who was trying to call people on a day that President Biden dropped out. So if I'm just saying, I want to beat Republicans. I don't want to beat Democrats. That's my life mission.
You're doing a great job.
And even that's a really stupid thing to say. The day Biden dropped out, what? Are there a lot of young people who have the kind of insider access that your fucking decrepit millionaire ass has?
Right.
Like what? The average 18-year-old has a hotline to the movers and shakers in the party to be making those kinds of calls. Where were the young people? President Obama was making calls. Yeah, well, he's a corrupt insider who can make those calls. Like, what the fuck are you even talking about?
Also, the party line until Biden's debate meltdown was that he's the candidate. That's it. Shut up. Stop causing division. Right.
Exactly. And it's just a stutter.
Right. Exactly. And it's just a stutter. He'll be fine.
All right. So our friends at
specific. I think it is
our friends at Case Study QB put together a nice cut. Thank you very much. Saved a lot of time for us. So this is the meat of their debate.
Let me be very specific. I think it is abominable that an official of a political party who is being paid or supported by that political party to go out and raise money to defeat members of the same party. I think that's a jackassery of the highest level.
James, can you tell me
if you want to beat Republicans, of which of course lefties never do, they never even run against them. That's one thing. I'm not into beating Democrats. I'm into beating Republicans.
James, I would say, first of all, I am not paid to be a vice chair. The vice chair role is not a paid role at all. Okay. It's a volunteer role. What I would also say to that is that I think it's possible for us to do two things at once.
I don't think other Democrats are the problem we have in the United States today. I think it's Republicans, and I think all of our efforts and all of our force should be going to elect Republicans.
James, I
can't make it any simpler than that.
There is a real danger, though. You just talked about how those Medicaid cuts were terrible, obviously. Those were enabled by two of our members literally passing away, unfortunately. Right there.
All right. Just a little bit on what he's talking about here.
So House Republicans were narrowly able to move forward on their budget bill with 2 Republican defections, which was only possible because 3 Democrats elected in November weren't present for the vote. 2 Democratic seats are currently empty. Former reps Raul Gravia and Sylvester Turner both died earlier this year, and Representative Donald Norcross was also absent following a medical incident, which his office said will require extended recovery. So, Hogg is not wrong that having a caucus that's geriatric to dead has consequences when it comes time to vote.
That is a real problem that we have to deal with.
Y'all always remind me that I'm close to the day too.
No, it's okay. I was just going to add real quick. The irony of this, too, is that James Carville's wife is a very conservative, right-wing Republican. Oh,
right. Strategist.
Beating Republican. Yeah, exactly. Yeah.
Every time you say something, you remind people, let me get this straight. You are still planning on raising money to primary other Democrats. That's what that's your plan.
We're doing both, James.
Let me finish, and then you answer. You're going to raise $20 million to primary yet unspecified Democrats. I think that's an abomination.
Some of the money is going to be used to challenge Democrats that we feel like are failing to meet the moment. However, a lot of it is going to be used to spend money in critical state legislative races that are critical to breaking majorities and also in open primaries in those state legislative seats. It's not only going to challenge people that are Democrats, to be clear. There have been vice chairs previously who had done exactly what I'm doing now, where they supported people in primaries while they were vice chairs of the DNC while they were out there. And part of the reason that is not a conflict of interest is because there isn't information that we have access to that could sway these elections in any serious way. What the DNC has rollover is specifically the presidential election. And in our bylaws, it does say you cannot be involved in the primary process. And I completely agree with that. Completely. I do not want to repeat a 2016 here. But the fact of the matter is, James, there have been vice chairs previously who have done very similar things.
I don't understand. You're not going to raise money to run against Democrats, or you are going to raise money to run against Democrats?
We're
going to do that.
We're raising money
to do that.
Democrats.
That is an abomination.
James, you have to understand the nuance here.
There's no nuance to it. It's just flat out wrong. It's flat out wrong to use money that could be used to beat up.
Here's the deal, James. What is your plan to deal with our abominable approval rating?
Win elections. Win elections. You see, against Republicans. Don't do. Let me finish, okay? Let me finish. You want my strategy. It is to win elections. It's not to win an election in Queens, okay, which you don't ever run against a Republican. It is to help Democrats win elections.
David, you've said a bunch of times that you don't want a
okay, so is that missing the point on purpose? I don't know, because, Carville is coming out of the Southern version of the same kind of machine style politics that actually Joe Biden is a product of, where, it's all about the club. It's all about the club. You don't challenge members of the club. It's almost like he can't think beyond that very clearly, because he says it's not about winning elections in Queens. Well, what Hogg is talking about, so you're acknowledging that no Republican is going to win there anyway. So what's the big deal? Why do you think you need to sue him? Because your whole idea of politics is it's an insider's club. And as an insider, that is a grotesque violation of your responsibilities as a member of the club to primary other people in the club, even if it's no threat to the party as a whole. And then to just ignore the core point that Hogg is making, well, we have historically low approval. How are you going to fix that? Win elections. Well, how are you going to win the elections with historically low approval? It's just nonsense. In the clip we previously showed, Hogg is exactly right. Carville hasn't won an election since before Hogg was born. Why is his opinion even solicited?
Yeah, no, Carville's trying to make a big deal out of this $20 million. It's a waste of resources. We need every dollar spent on the frontline districts and the swing districts. You douchebag losers lit $2 billion on fire last year. $20 million as a fraction of that.
Experts.
What is it, 1%? I think I'm rough math. What's 20 million of 2 billion? I think that's 1%. So you're saying we can't take 1% of that money and put it towards strengthening the bench so that we don't have a bunch of geriatric cancer patients who don't stand for anything. Like, it's just crazy. That's
who
what
don't show up because they're dead.
He's trying to say there's an opportunity cost here, that what money you put into safe districts to primary Democrats is stuff you can't spend on the front lines. You're talking about $20 million. If you're so worried about that, that this kid's going to light up $20 million, get on the phone and tell your rich friends who own the party, hey, we need $20 million more dollars to make up for what this idiot's doing. You can raise that money in a day. If you wanted to. Yeah,
it's the principle.
It's the principle, obviously,
and it also is. Look, James Carville is almost a caricature of the get off my lawn man who's angry that a young kid is coming to eat his lunch.
Oh yeah, yep.
Okay, so little bit more of this.
Would have seen it, I would have said something. I promise you. This is not directed at you. It's directed at the general principle of an official of a political party spending time raising money to beat other members of that political party. That is a specific.
The only thing I would say, James, is in David's defense, like I actually ran this whole idea of what David is doing by my father, who's a boomer, and he, I said to him, "What do you think about this?" And like in his mind, he was thinking, "Well, I think the Democratic Party needs to clear out. Like they need to clean house. And how else do you clean house? You can't force people.
You can clean house without having officials of the party raising money to beat other Democrats. Anybody can run for anything they want. Okay, that's not the question. The question is specifically, as a official and as a fiduciary duty to the party that you represent, should you be raising money to run against people of that party? And again, this is not even an ethical close call to me. I don't care if you run for what you want. All right, if they think that the problem is some older Democrat in a +2 district, I got news for you. That's not our problem. Our problem is
what about the fact that all these older Democrats are hanging on to their seats?
You can argue that all you want. I'm not arguing that. Okay. What I'm saying is, I'm saying one specific thing. Don't try to make this an argument into something else. Whether or not some incumbent that's been there 20 years should remain, let their voters in that district decide that. What I'm saying is, it is not the job of the Democratic Party to raise money to defeat other Democrats. That's my simple thing. And I'm not going to change.
We agree. We both want to defeat Republicans and win, right? But my question is, besides saying let's just get a majority to address that approval rating, how do you think we can win with an approval rating?
The job of the Democratic Party is to win elections for them.
Answer the question,
that's its raison d'etre.
People have a poor perception.
Go ahead. I'm sorry for speaking while you interrupted me. Go ahead.
You interrupted me, so let me finish. People have such a poor perception of our party. We have to change, and we can't just change our words. We have to change who we are.
I'm gonna feed your ass to a crocodile, son.
So what he's saying there, obviously, is
because of your generation, we don't have no titties at the Mardi Gras no more.
Exactly. Yeah. So, I mean, part of winning, according to what Hogg's saying, is improving the image of the party by getting the undesirables out. Now, unfortunately, there really is no bench. Unfortunately, there really is no way to rebrand the party from within. I think he's naive in thinking he can do it.
And he just keeps avoiding that point, and Hogg keeps coming back like, well, how are you going to win these elections when the brand of the party is so toxic? And the answer is they're just saying, well, Trump's going to be more toxic by then. I mean, that's the reality.
That's the reality.
But before we wrap it up, here's the heartwarming, good vibes story of the week. Just called David Hogg. He reminded me of the story after the Battle of Shiloh. Henry Halleck urged President Lincoln to fire Ulysses Grant. Lincoln said, I can't fire him. This man fights. David Hogg fights. The DNC needs him.
Oh, wow. He came around.
He came around. Or, you know what is more likely? He doesn't want to be left behind. There's a certain point where these old geriatrics see the writing on the wall and say, hey, man, I better make some inroads with the young kids if I want to keep getting paid to talk nonsense on TV.
There you go. An unexpected happy ending. Wasn't expecting that.
Yep. They kissed and made up.
Eric Rousseau says, our overlord lizard people want us all to eat crickets and bugs. Thank you. Judy Denmark says, hey, guys, how about a matinee version of Members and or Movie Night? Those of us old refugees in Europe who can't stay awake that late are jealous of what we are missing. Yeah, we should do it. We've done those in the past. We probably should do a matinee movie night once in a while because we do have a lot of overseas viewers. So thank you for that,
we
Judy
do.
Denmark. Yep, we will make a note of that for sure. Batya belongs to the planet Erg and is, of course, a Romulan. Thank you. Appreciate that.
She does kind of have that Romulan look.
She does. Eric Rousseau, come on, guys. Trump is creating good AI and robot jobs. America first. Ben here for president. Appreciate that. Thank you. All right. Kit's Corner says, at this point, it's better just to build a time machine and go back to the 50s and tariff your way to victory. See you at the malt shop. See you at the malt shop. See you at the Johnny Rockets, right? All right. Michael Castillo, Artie Blarty Fart Blast says, Agincourt in the Red Sea and the U.S. aircraft carriers are French knights and the Houthis are the English archers. Michael Castillo says, good afternoon, gentlemen. LeBron James got punked out by the Timberwolves like he was a punk in prison. Anthony Edwards just might be Michael Jordan's illegitimate son. Free Palestine. Thank you for that. Shane the Pain, thanks for the $10, and that is why no one will vote for gender fluid. That's just too much reading for our dumb masses. Thank you, Shane the Pain. Appreciate that. Let's see here. AKY.
I mean, seriously, like, who wrote those rules? It's just amazing that no one in the room was like, people are going to laugh at us.
Yeah, exactly. No, it's crazy.
Didn't occur to anybody?
A Kentucky woman won, says, for the laugh about Carville and the cayenne pepper. Thank you for that. Appreciate that. Mark Thicot says, I think Carville can shove his head up his ass. Thank you, Mark Thicot. Appreciate that. Ladeniford Jadaniston says, in jackassery we trust. Thank you for that. Appreciate that. Hamhawk says, don't consider grocery shopping as cost saving so much as oil and sugar avoidance. Thank you, Hamhawk. Appreciate that. Okay, what do we got here? DD Cooking Show with Daryl Cooper. Time for us all to up our food prep game, rediscovering Grandma Cooper's traditional home cooking. Thank you.
I don't know how to make strudel.
Yeah, me neither. Me neither. All right, folks, we will move right along here. So, earlier this month, Tucker Carlson tweeted the following. He says, whatever you think of tariffs, it's clear that now is the worst possible time for the United States to participate in a military strike on Iran. We can't afford it. Thousands of Americans would die. We'd lose the war that follows. Nothing would be more destructive to our country, and yet we're closer than ever thanks to unrelenting pressure from neocons. This is suicidal. Anyone advocating for conflict with Iran is not an ally of the United States, but an enemy. Well, Ben Shapiro thought he had to respond to that, and he responds by sort of subtly hinting that Tucker may be a Qatari agent of sorts.
The false binary that has always been created around the Middle East is that if you hit a target in the Middle East, full-scale war erupts, and thousands and millions die, full-scale invasion of Iran. Barack Obama used to say the same crap, and it isn't true. How do I know it's not true? Because literally, Donald Trump did it in his first term. He took out Qasem Soleimani, who's the head of the IRGC's terror mechanism, and nothing happened. That is what happened. Nothing. And this idea that a strike on the Iranian nuclear facilities would result in what? Iran attacking Hawaii? Widespread war? Nope. But again, these false binaries that Tucker likes to posit effectively act as cover for the Iranian regime. Because again, if the idea is that you have to let Iran go nuclear rather than striking their nuclear facilities, thus endangering extraordinary elements of importance to the American national security apparatus, ranging again from Saudi and UAE to Israel, the Suez Canal, the Red Sea, and all the rest, the Straits of Hormuz. If that's the idea, well, you may as well just surrender the Middle East to the Iranians now, which of course, I don't know what Tucker's feelings are on that. He was interviewing the Emir of Qatar. Qatar is essentially a cutout front for the Iranian regime. And he was treating them with great care, shall we say. President Trump obviously does not follow that same belief system. Neither does the rest of the administration. Thank God.
Okay, so, more intra-party conservative fighting here between the woke right and the non-woke right, depending on your interpretation of things. You can say who's who. But this issue did come up when Tucker was on the Megyn Kelly show, and here he takes some not so subtle jabs at Ben Shapiro, implying he is loyal to a foreign country, whatever that country might be.
I'm a freaking Episcopalian. I am not a tool of Iran. I'm a freaking Episcopalian. I am not Shiite as a tool of Qatar, who's like one of our closest allies in the world. The largest American air base in the Middle East is in Qatar. They're a close ally of ours. And all of a sudden it's like, oh, you're taking Qatari money. I've never taken a dollar from any government. I mean, are you joking? And these are people who are acting on behalf of a foreign government telling me that I'm unpatriotic. And I try not to get like crazy angry about it But it's hard because you see these people, you know, Ben Shapiro or these shills like come out and like attack you personally because
he was on the he was bashing you just this week.
But it's what's so infuriating is like I'm 56 in 2 weeks, so I've watched this. I was in Iraq. Like I'm not an expert on anything, and I would never claim expertise. I try not to claim expertise I don't have. But just I have a good memory, and I was there for a lot of this stuff, and I have unresolved rage for the reasons I just explained. No one's apologized, no one's repented, no one's changed, and so to attack me is I'm selling out my country, which is the only thing I care about. I don't have another passport. I have no plans to go anywhere. I could certainly afford to move some other country. I'm not. I live directly across from my parents' grave and I'm never leaving. So to attack me as a shill for another country, when you yourself are shilling for another country, it's almost too much for my tiny brain to deal with, actually. How much better it would be if someone like Ben Shapiro, who's smart, and I don't think Ben Shapiro is like evil, I'm not attacking him as a person, but how much better would it be if he could just sit and say, okay, here's what I think would happen if we joined an attack on Iran, or stop lying to me and telling me that we're going to defeat the Houthis. The whole point of getting involved in a war with the Houthis is to suck us into a war with Iran. Like, I know that.
Yeah, on whose behalf? On Israel's behalf. And that is the major difference between now and when the Soleimani strike happened, is now you have the Greater Israel Project in overdrive, moving at warp speed. And they are the ones pushing us into it, which means once you do it, whatever we want to say, it will be Israel calling the shots, because we're not going to leave them to fend for themselves. If they agitate a major conflict, that will inevitably draw us in. There's no question it would draw us in, whatever our public posture may or may not be in these talks or to the microphones. So obviously the stakes are much, much higher now. And he calls it out right there. The guy is doing this on behalf of a foreign country. He's shilling for a foreign country. That's clearly what this is about. It is clearly not in the national interest to agitate war with Iran. So here's one of the, I guess, we're calling the Zionist right the woke right, because that's what they are. So Tucker Carlson has to be one of the most dumbest and most gullible humans on the planet. He cries conspiracy when accused of being a shill for Qatar, but why is he surprised when he says things like this? So here he is. Here, this is his big own.
Israel, because it's an ally.
I don't even know what those words mean. I'm just saying my principle
they're an ally, right? I mean, they both.
I don't know what that means to be an ally.
Qatar is like one of our closest allies in the world. The largest American air base in the Middle East is in Qatar. They're a close ally of ours.
Okay. Now, as of 2022, major non-NATO ally designation will enhance U.S.-Qatar relationships. So, yes, they're considered a non-NATO ally. Nations with the MNNA designation are eligible to, among other things, host U.S. war reserve stockpiles of materials inside their countries. Private companies within those nations are also eligible to bid on contracts to maintain, repair, or overhaul U.S. military equipment. Those nations can also enter into agreements with the United States for training. More than 15 nations, including but not limited to Australia, Bahrain, Japan, Kuwait, and the Philippines, are currently designated as major non-NATO allies by the United States. This is from the Department of Defense's website just in 2020. But Tucker's troll game is pretty good, and he decided to go here with guest Matt Walsh. This is an interesting exchange here, timed pretty funnily, I have to say, given the whole brouhaha between him and Ben Shapiro. Matt Walsh, obviously employed at the Daily Wire or contracted by the Daily Wire, whatever their arrangement is. So here is Tucker Carlson asking Matt Walsh, hey, how about that Dave Smith versus Douglas Murray debates?
Of the debate between Dave Smith and Douglas Murray on Rogan a couple of weeks ago. Did you watch that? And what
I did. I watched. I ended up watching. I wasn't planning on.
I did. Thanks for bringing that up. That's not putting me in an awkward position at all. Really appreciate that.
Watching the whole thing, but I watched the whole thing. I'm constantly hearing from the peanut gallery demanding that I kind of give my verdict or my take on Israel and Israel versus Palestine and all this kind of stuff. And I have given my take, and my take is I don't care that much. I'm not just America first. I'm an American chauvinist in that I only care about my own country. I honestly don't care about other countries. I wish the people of other countries well. I think they all have a right to defend themselves, and they should. I think that if you can't defend yourself as a nation, or if you can't survive without being propped up by another government, say ours, then you shouldn't exist as a country.
Oh, wait. See, Tucker says, wait. What do you mean?
Wait. If you can't exist without being propped up by another government, say ours, you shouldn't exist.
Yeah.
Israel cannot exist without being propped up by the United States.
You think so?
Its nuclear program came from the United States. Its weapons come from the United States. Its economy is supported by the United States. I'm not attacking Israel. I'm just saying in point of fact, I think that's true. I mean, Israel thinks it's true, or they wouldn't have armies of lobbyists and influencers in the United States. Bibi wouldn't have shown up twice in the past 3 months.
From my perspective, it seems like they can handle themselves quite fine. But
I have to say that because YouTube payments don't go out to the 21st of the month. And so I got to keep the shit to shoe level at the Daily Wire for the next 3 weeks.
Any country, if there is any country out there that fundamentally cannot exist without being subsidized by American taxpayers, then not only should that country not exist, but that country already does not exist.
It's weird, man. It's weird. I mean, Tucker definitely was trolling there by asking him that.
Some people say that you're Mike Figueredo's alter.
Yeah, right.
Is there any truth to that?
Yeah. Some people say you're the Bizarro World version of Mike Figueredo. I mean, I think he was definitely trolling there by bringing that up. And it's funny that Matt Walsh says, well,
yeah,
he brings it up
he knew
in
the spot he's
context.
putting him in. Tucker's a smart guy.
Of course, he knew he was trolling there. Pretty well done. But, it's just a curious answer that Walsh gives there. Well, because he answers that in answering specifically a question about Israel. Well, I think, if you can't exist without our help, you shouldn't exist. And then Tucker says, well, Israel couldn't. Well, I think it does. I mean, what are you walking that back? No, this is really
he totally pussied out.
He totally pussied out. He totally wimped out because Tucker actually went there and actually said, okay, well, let's get you on the record saying a statement that would surely land you in very hot water over at the Daily Wire.
He has indicated in text, that's interesting because we showed this in a segment about this whole thing. He did in text because somebody said, well, what about Israel?
Yep.
And he said that includes Israel too. But here he decided not to triple down on that.
Yeah, well, I think that is why Tucker went there. And now you got, Dave Rubin trying to facilitate a debate between Ben Shapiro and Tucker Carlson. No, this is just the latest development in a rift on the conservative side. It's really the division that this issue is sowing amongst the MAGA faithful is very positive in my view. I mean, the fact that you have Candace Owens coming out saying, I don't recognize this administration anymore, that's big. She's obviously much more outspoken on this than Tucker is. Tucker ultimately kind of takes the position that Walsh is kind of weaseling into there, which is, hey, I only care about America. I don't really care about this very much. But when you start walking this into a broader foreign policy conversation, and it's already a pretty damn broad one, I think, but when you start talking about war with Iran, what Tucker says there, I mean, I take him at his word. I think he was very affected by the Iraq war because he used to host that Crossfire show on CNN where he was spouting the Bush talking points, as loud as he could for a long time there. And he wound up with a lot of egg on his face. And I think that definitely stuck with him. I think he's very wary about supporting these conflicts now. And now you're seeing a real rift open up. And this is why I think the Daily Wire is tanking, because I think on the left, obviously, you're seeing, an emphatically pro-Palestine faction start to form. And on the right, you're starting to see people one by one saying, well, I can't really go along with this if this zealous support for Israel is just take it or leave it. That's what Candace Owens is getting into. Now, Tucker's not there yet, but I think a war with Iran might push him there. And so that is what makes the stakes of this pretty high and getting higher.
Yeah, with Tucker, it's a very mixed picture because he has done segments that just shamelessly shill for the administration.
Yes.
Does there come a point where he's willing to cross that Rubicon, where he becomes persona non grata around the Oval Office? We shall see.
Right. That's the big question, because how long can you toe that line? He interviewed Munther Isaac, the pastor in Bethlehem, which is a great interview. Okay, so at what point do you have to make a break? It seems like you can straddle that line pretty comfortably until and unless a war with Iran starts. Like, if they actually push it to that point, is that going to be what it takes to get this next wave of, you know, quote unquote populist anti-war MAGA people to break away? And I hope that the administration sees some risk in that. I hope that is why Mike Waltz was pushed out. I hope it's not over Signalgate. I hope it's because he was an Iran hawk and they had to show him the door. I don't know that that's the reason. I don't give the Trump administration the benefit of any doubt, obviously. But I hope that's the reason. I hope that message is coming through. I hope as his approval rating goes down, it becomes clear to them that a war with Iran is not doable. It is a non-starter. Your support will implode. I mean, you could be talking about a historic collapse in favorability if we end up in a shootout with Iran.
Sure. I mean, given
20s,
that he's
20s approval rate. Like,
that's what I was going to say.
Yeah.
With where he's gotten to in the first 100 days, what, around 40?
Yeah.
He'd be down around 22, 23.
Yeah. So as much as I do wish Tucker were a lot stronger on the Israel question, I hope that kind of resistance to a war with Iran is enough to catch their ear and realize and make them understand you just can't do it. You can't do it.
As I have said many times from my experience with the whole MAGA base, the parts that we overlap with and the parts that are more chuddish, the whole thing, most of them are not down with that Israel shit. Yep. Most of them, the vast majority of them. They go along with it because, the boss tells them to. That's it. I don't think there's, as you can see from Candace's audience, which is particularly devoted to her, I must say, particularly passionate about her. There's no cost to Tucker to take that position, but there's a personal cost. I don't think there's a cost to him as a podcaster. I think it would just increase his status in a lot of that base. But yeah, man, I mean, at that point, you are outcast from that whole crew.
Yeah. And at that point, there's really no turning back. Like, if this becomes a deal breaker for you, you're almost forced into the post-duopoly space for good. Because to crawl back into the duopoly is to compromise on this issue. And given the horror of the issue, it's hard to compromise on that and save face. Yeah. Artie Blarty Fart Blast says Pelosi Carville 2028. Appreciate that. Mark Beats the Co says your impersonations are first class, guys. I'm laughing myself sideways. Well, thank you. Glad we could bring some joy to your day. Scorpionic Sag, thanks for the $9.99, says we got the New Deal from labor unions, elections, and communists, but because we didn't go full communist, the New Deal got eroded, and we are back where we started before the New Deal. Interesting analysis. Yes, I think that's there's a lot of truth to that.
We did invent the miniskirt.
Yeah, there you go. I tried to find the book you recommended on MS-13 by A. Chode. Not available on Amazon. Is it being censored? Thank you, Kevin G. Appreciate that. The Green's throat singing was way more visceral and effective. Maybe all warm and fuzzy with solidarity. Thank you. Stoop sign in North Carolina. We barbecued a whole hog and hunting with a Brown and Arms rifle. Hog. Thank you, Stoop sign. Killer Hitton says election rules co-authored by Kafka and Rube Goldberg. Thank you for that. Let's see. I've seen a video of a Japanese guy in a robot fuck machine on Comedy Central. I couldn't believe it was even on TV. Carville would make Hogg squeal. Thank you for that. Appreciate that. Look, Eric Rousseau also thought of that same joke. Carville will have Hogg squealing like a pig, Deliverance style. Haha. Thanks to my jambalaya enema, I produce bullshit so prodigiously it stinks up the bayou. Thank you, Kenman G. Appreciate that. Tara Palmieri's not a Nepo baby. Her success is mostly that she's a hot 36-year-old. That's right. It's Jen Palmieri. Tara Palmieri. All right, folks. It's Thursday. The weekend is approaching, so even though we're over time, we'll do one more. It's a quick one. This is a crazy one. This is a real crazy one. Texas jumps the shark again. City Council agrees to put ceasefire resolution to a vote. So this is a lovely Texas town, which I had never heard of, called San Marcos, which a couple weeks ago decided that they were going to pass a town resolution calling for a ceasefire in Gaza, citing, among other things, that they didn't want their tax dollars going towards the perpetuation of a mass murder campaign and agitation towards World War III. Pretty simple, right? So San Marcos, Texas, a city of just 70,000 people, identified that its residents were sending $4.4 million tax dollars to Israel each year. So the city council drafted a resolution calling for the reallocation of those funds towards domestic priorities. In other words, hey, we did some math. We figured out we're spending as a community $4 million on Israel, and we'd rather spend that money right here in San Marcos. So now Greg Abbott is threatening to cut the city off from all future state contracts if it adopts this resolution. Look at the condescending tone and mockery this so-called fiscal conservative uses when talking about the reallocation. These politicians have zero loyalty to our country. They are total traitors. That's right. So on April 15th, the San Marcos City Council approved moving forward with a ceasefire resolution on their May 6th meeting, sparking mixed reactions. The agenda item was titled, "Hold a Discussion Regarding a Possible Resolution Calling for the Immediate and Permanent Ceasefire in Occupied Palestine, an Arms Embargo on Israel, Recognition of Palestinian Sovereignty, and the Protection of Constitutional Rights for all people under national and international law." No vote was made on the resolution. Instead, Council approved placing an actual ceasefire resolution on their next agenda. Some residents criticized the resolution because it was not a local matter, but something the federal government should be dealing with. Thomas Alter, assistant professor of history at Texas State, spoke at the meeting as a San Marcos resident. He countered that it is a local issue as tax money from local residents is going to fund the conflict. This is very much a local issue when billions of our tax dollars go to fund the genocide where our local school district is facing an $8 million budget deficit, let alone other countless underfunded education and social welfare programs. This is money for war but can't feed the poor type stuff. Pretty basic. But once again, Greg Abbott is not only condemning this as anti-Semitic in nature, but he is basically arguing that this violates anti-BDS laws, that to advocate for reallocation of funds away from Israel and into your own school district is to advocate for a boycott of Israel, which is essentially illegal in Texas. So taking it a step further from demagoguing against them as anti-Semites, saying you're actually breaking anti-boycott laws by advocating for reallocation of your tax dollars. Think of how fucking psychotic that is. Anti-Israel policies are anti-Texas policies, says Greg Abbott. Sent a letter to the city of San Marcos today condemning its proposed anti-Semitic resolution openly flouting Texas state law. Texas will not tolerate anti-Semitism. So we'll read a little bit of this letter here. Israel is a stalwart ally of the United States and a friend to Texas. I have repeatedly made clear that Texas will not tolerate anti-Semitism. Anti-Israel policies are anti-Texas policies. Over a year ago, following Hamas's cowardly attack and campus disruptions openly celebrating terrorism, I issued an executive order addressing anti-Semitism in higher education. I have proudly signed legislation prohibiting government entities from supporting efforts to boycott, divest from, and sanction Israel. That remains the law here. In
and
Texas,
we will be diverting funds into the celebration of Robert E. Lee Day going forward.
Yeah, right, exactly. Yeah. In Texas, no governmental entity may enter into a contract worth $100,000 or more unless it includes a written verification that the contracting entity does not boycott Israel and will not boycott Israel during the term of the contract. Texas code, blah, blah, blah. We don't have to read all that technical language. The proposed resolution, meaning the San Marcos ceasefire resolution, seems calculated to violate this law by calling for San Marcos to limit its commercial relations with Israel. Specifically, the resolution identifies $4.4 million that came from San Marcos residents' taxes that was sent to Israel. Okay, so if it's tax money, that's not commercial relations with Israel. You're not talking about commercial relations. You're talking about their tax dollars. So now you're going to conflate tax money with a commercial boycott of Israel? It then calls for the reallocation of such local funds away from Israel's military and towards essential domestic priorities.
Right.
It is difficult to believe that a city so carefully accounting for every dollar flowing to Israel and determined to reallocate those funds in a self-described embargo on our ally is at the same time requiring written verification from its contracting partners that they will not boycott Israel. What? What
you might be guilty
are you
of
talking
something.
about? I mean, that's just fucking insane. This public expression of desire to do what state law prohibits is unacceptable. So you're saying that because they're concerned that their tax dollars are being spent on a genocide in Palestine, that we don't trust you to vet your contracts to make sure they're not in violation of our anti-Israel boycott measure? That is just absolutely bonkers, even for Texas. It's absolutely bonkers. I would expect him to condemn the resolution as anti-Semitic, but to take it further to imply that it violates an anti-boycott law when you're talking, one, about tax dollars, not commercial dollars, and then you're inferring baselessly that because they're concerned about their tax dollars being misallocated, that they must not be vetting their contracts properly. And since when is it bad to examine the cost of things? I thought you guys are all about fiscal responsibility. I thought you would maybe commend them for looking into and calculating just how much of their money is being spent on genocide. That sounds like something Doge would do if Doge were based. They would figure out, hey, how much of your tax dollars is being spent to murder children in Gaza? But no, instead, he condemns them for doing that and says, not only are you guilty of violating an anti-boycott law, but now we are going to look into whether or not you further violated that law by not examining your contracts. So Blakely says, is this a joke? How is this not parody? You're really out there telling Americans they have to be subservient to another fucking country? Texas, how are you allowing this to stand? The Patriot Voice, which is a conservative account, says, there is such a thing as the First Amendment and you are trampling all over it. This is unbelievably unconstitutional. Who the hell do you think you are to say another foreign country's policies are Texas policies? This can be challenged in the courts, and it should be, even if it has to go all the way to SCOTUS. Stop infringing on our damn rights. I'm glad you said that, Patriot Voice, but this is why you can't empower these people. This is why you can't make bargains like this, because these people do not care at all about your constitutional rights.
Or your freedom.
Or your freedom. Pro-Israel policies or pro-Texas policies. And how dare you look into where your tax money is being spent? Not only are you anti-Semites, you're breaking the law. I mean, this is absolutely fucking bonkers, even by their standards.
Well, and this is really what, I know you're reading our book, this is really what Whitney gets into. And if you have another explanation besides a mass blackmail, bribery, extortion, and threat ring, you tell me the fucking governor of Texas is this impassioned about anti-Semitism and Israel on a personal level. He wakes up in the morning worrying about the state of Israel. Do you believe that? So when you see so many people like Donald Trump, who I am sure could give a flying fuck about Israel, probably don't even like Israel, certainly doesn't like Netanyahu, probably not all that crazy about Jews either, in all honesty.
Yeah.
So why would they go so far out of their way to even do something like that? Do you really think he did this without getting a phone call from somebody? You think he didn't get instructions to do this? Clearly, these people are owned and controlled. A lot of these people are fans of the playground, and they got stuff on them. A lot of them, even if it's not that particular thing, they have other picadillos that have been captured on video that they have evidence of. How many of these crooks, criminals, weirdos, narcissists, and psychopaths do you think haven't done anything that would be career ending if it got out? And they got all that shit, man. It's the only explanation, because none of them mean it. That's obvious.
Of course.
So why are they doing it? It's not just the money. There are a lot of organizations and countries throwing money around where you don't see
such a universal bipartisan willingness to compromise everything you claim to believe in on such a consistent basis. It's beyond just lobbyist money. There's something else going on here.
No, it's bribery, then blackmail, then extortion. I mean, it's all of that. Yeah, exactly. I mean, then threats. Yeah, 100%. Has to be.
Better check your brakes.
Yeah, right. Exactly. Better check the brakes. Indeed. All right. Let's see. What do we got here? Eric Rousseau says Wes Craven's U.S. Congress. Thank you for that. Appreciate that. All right. Did somebody say Daryl Cooper? Ach, mein Neidischer Geist, my envious spirit. Back in my day, we had to burn books to control the narrative. He just goes on Joe Rogan. Thank you. Appreciate that. First Queen Fire Dancer. I'm way late here, but please, Keaton, please tell me you're serious about your music podcast. I would love to do one. Yeah, it would be fun. I mean, I would love to do a movie one, but I don't have time. This is, easy and it's kind of cheap to do because I won't have to buy like movie tickets or anything. Could be fun. With all that spare time you have, if you hear the Jethro Tull Hotel California saga, I will subscribe. I did listen to that, and yes, I forget the name of the Tull song, but yeah, I could definitely see where the verse, the chord structure, and even the melody. What is it? What's the name of the Tull song that's from Jethro Tull? Anyway, I'll look it up. But yeah, I did listen to that Frost Queen, and yes, I am convinced that they are derivative of the other. I guess Hotel California would have come after, right? Because that was the early Tull album. It was off of Stand Up, I think. So yeah. Yeah, no, I mean, I would like to do it. Would be fun. The Vanguard van. Keaton, I'm still laughing about when you said Cenk as always has to have a side grift. I don't know if truer words could have ever been said. Such a thick truth. You guys are hilarious. Thank you, Vanguard van. Appreciate that. Not to be confused with the Vanguard. That is a Vanguard parody handle. They are not fans of the show, I don't believe. Bonzo Beans, please play Fables of Falbus by Charles Mingus. Fits our times perfectly. Inspired by Little Rock, Arkansas, 1957. Thank you, Bonzo Beans. Maybe we'll do that on one of the Rumble breaks. I meant to say play during a Rumble switch break. Yeah, Fables of Falbus. Yeah, there we go. Thank you very much for that. Artie Barty Fart Blast says, vote Dem, guaranteed 0.0009 less evil than Trump. Thank you. Excuse me. Shane the Pain says, make Texas Mexico again. There we go. Nice anti-colonialism from Shane the Pain. Appreciate that. All right, folks, that is our show. We appreciate you very much for being here. We got a couple days off coming up, and then we will be back on Sunday. That'll be May 4th, right? Sunday night at 7 p.m. Eastern. In the meantime, please smash that like button. Please smash that subscribe button. Smash that follow button over on Rumble. Make sure if you tend to watch us on YouTube, make sure you're following us on Rumble too, because the Misty Winston Show will stream exclusively to Rumble and X. So make sure you go subscribe over there. Very important. Appreciate you all very much for being here. Thanks everybody in the chat, the YouTubers, the Rumblers. Thanks to our mods, as always, for keeping the peace in the chat. And we will see you back here Sunday night, 7 p.m. Until then, thanks for spending the afternoon with us. Be safe and be well.
Courage!
Please clap.